My coworker's wife thought we were having an affair because I made him and their kids dinner, and it's changed how I look at myself. Several months ago, my coworker, 44M Matt's wife, Mary 39F, had to go back to her home country to deal with her mother's declining health and later the funeral and estate stuff. They knew she'd be gone for a while, but didn't know how long exactly. Matt was left with their 3 kids, 4, 8, and 12, and pretty much started struggling immediately. We work full-time, 10-plus hours a day, and he went from being part of a partnership to essentially being a single parent overnight. Mary works at the same job, but in a higher position in another area. He handled most of it fine, but shopping and making dinner gave him a lot of trouble. He could handle breakfast. The church, day camps, schools handled lunch, but he was struggling with dinner and finding time to get all the shopping done between picking kids up, getting them home or to extracurriculars, etc. I 25F felt bad for the guy, so I made a deal with him. I worked for a catering company pre-COVID, so I have a very easy time cooking a lot of food at once, and I usually do that for myself. I'll make one big batch of food and have it every day for my lunch or my dinner or whatever. I told Matt that if he paid for my groceries and gas on top of his, I'd do the shopping and cook their dinners for the week. At some point, the 12-year-old asked if he could watch me make dinner, and then if he could help. So I started teaching him the basics, which, to be honest, I kind of think he should have already known. But whatever, and he posted pictures of it all online. I started taking him shopping with me so he could help pick things out, and he started packing everyone's lunches. It was cute. Apparently his mom saw pictures of it, and in some it featured me talking to his dad, and she got the wrong impression. She messaged me on social media, confronting me about the affair. I was pretty pissed, but I kept my cool. I asked her if he'd ever been unfaithful before, and she said no. I asked if she'd ever suspected him before, and she again said no. I asked if she really thought he was stupid enough to bring his affair partner home to meet his children, and to let his own son post pictures of it all online. Again, no. I even offered to let her look at my phone when she got home from her trip. At about that point, I think she realized how ridiculous the idea was, and she called me over Facebook and started crying and apologizing. I told her it was all okay, promised not to tell her husband and all that, but I still see her at work now that she's home again, and it's always super awkward. I generally chalked it up to her being stressed to the gills and on edge, but ever since then I've been extremely paranoid about my behavior and how I'm coming off to other people. I really do not want to come off as someone who would help a man cheat on his wife while she's burying her mother. So now I've wound up double thinking almost everything I say. How often I offer to help people. How much help I give. How I come off if I ask for help. What it means if I agree to hang out with someone outside of work, and how their families might view it. All of it. It really sucks because I genuinely just wanted to make things easier on them. I can't even vent to anyone IRL because almost everyone I know works for the same company and would instantly recognize who I was talking about. Comments? Commenter. 1. The male colleague should have been open with his wife and let her know he needed support. It sounds like the wife was experiencing deep grief and shocked to see a young woman around her family. The wife should have messaged the husband, however, her emotions would have been all over the place. If people were as kind as you, the world would be a better place. Commenter. 2. Put yourself in her shoes. You communicated. All is clear. Why still worry? Commenter. 3. It's a lovely thing you did, but if I was in her position, I'd feel the same way. It's not great her husband didn't mention it and looks a bit shady. Perhaps there's some history of trust issues there you're not aware of. Don't let this change how you are, though. I don't think it's a bad reflection on you at all. Commenter 4. I completely understand his wife's concerns. A father incapable of managing his own kids lets a woman come home to make their dinner. This is very generous of you and you wanted to be of service. But did he talk to him about your prior arrangement? Stories. Number 2, Aita for asking my dad if the reason he missed my birthday was to be with his other family. My parents divorced 3 years ago because my dad had an affair and the lady got pregnant and he left us to be with her and the kid. My sister and I hate him, but our mom still wants us to have a relationship with him, so we see him once or twice a month to make her happy. My sister and I turned 16 on Saturday, twins. We had a party in the park with our aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents from both sides of the family. We all wore masks. The only person who didn't come was my dad. He came over yesterday to drop off our present. I swear it was made for a 8-year-old. This was it. BTW, and said that he was sorry that he couldn't come to our birthday, and that he was busy. He lost his job in May, and has been sitting on his ass playing video games since because nobody's hiring. So I know he wasn't working. Editor's note. Picture description of light pink dress with small polka dots scattered all over. It has shoulder-length short sleeves on both arm sides. A bow is tied in the front of the dress on the wrist. The dress is called Big Girl's Polka Dot Midi Dress, in the kid's size, from the brand of Speechless. I asked him exactly why he couldn't come to our birthday, and he just said that he was busy. So I looked at him and asked if the reason he missed our 16th birthday was because he wanted to be with his other family instead. He left without saying anything, and I've been banned from their house for being rude. Aita for asking my dad if he missed my and my sister's birthday because he'd rather be with his other family. Edit. He hates it when we call them his other family because he wants us to think of them as our family. He even tried for a while to get us to call his new wife Mom. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Everyone now and then, being the asshole is the right thing to be. And this dress is adorable. For Easter. When you were 10. NTA, reply. And I don't like pink and my sister doesn't wear dresses. Did OP have to share the present with her twin? Reply. We each got a dress. We don't have to share OP on matching. With her twin, reply. We used to match all the time and now we only match when we walk out of our rooms in similar outfits. And both of us are too stubborn to change. And yes, he got us the same exact dress even though we haven't matched since we were around 10. But I'll give him a pass for giving us the same thing because pretty much everyone does that with twins. Commenter 2. NTA. Why would your mom make you visit him? Reply. She wanted us to have a good relationship with him. Update. The visits with my dad have stopped. Instead, we spend those weekends with our grandparents, which is way better. My sister and I returned the dresses. My sister bought a jacket that she liked, and I got shoes and makeup. When my dad found out that my sister and I weren't visiting anymore, he got mad. He said he didn't mean it when he said I was banned, and I need to have a relationship with my brother and sister. Yes. This was how my dad decided to announce that his wife is pregnant. He also thought that would be the right time to tell us that our sister would need our room, so when we visit, we take the couch. He also wanted 50-50 custody. When our mom heard that he's giving away our room and wants to go to court for more custody, she lost it. She screamed at him about how irresponsible and selfish he is, and told him that he'd be laughed out of court if he tried to get custody, without us even having a bedroom there. I think he's still trying to go to court, but my sister and I don't like him and don't want to stay there anymore, and we don't have a room, so there's pretty much zero chance we're gonna have to stay there. Also, my mom introduced me and my sister to her boyfriend the other day, and he seems great. He really wants to get to know some and my sister individually, something my dad didn't even care to do, and he's so nice to us and my mom. They're talking about him moving in a few months, so even though my dad's a dick, I guess this story still has a happy ending. Edit. I just looked it up, and we're in a state where there's no guarantee they'll take what we say into account, and you legally can't refuse visitation. Update. Dad's new wife talked him into converting the basement into 2 bedrooms and a bathroom for me and my sister, so we might have to go now. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Glad there's some happy ending there and he would be laughed out of court. Why force a 16-year-old to share a room with a 2 to 3-year-old? No judge would be happy with that. Plus you and your sis are 16. You can decide your own custody. Reply. He's not making us share a room with our half-brother. He wants us to sleep on the couch. Commenter 2. Wait a minute, was that couch singular? Is he not only denying you and your twin a bed, but also expecting you to share a couch? Reply. Yeah, it's a pull-out couch though. So he thinks it's perfectly fine. Commenter 3. I hate to be that guy, but it's likely that your dad is asking for 50-50 custody at this late date to avoid paying child support. Reply. Or so he and his wife can have free babysitters. Commenter 4. On the plus side, unless you're living somewhere very weird that happens to speak English, in most cases of divorce 14 is the age where you get to decide what parent you live with, and can just flat out say, no, Court can't make you go live at your dad's now that you are 16 anyways. But Google it. Here in Canada, it's 14. I believe it's the same in the USA and most first world countries. But I am no expert. Just a guy who had divorced parents and can Google shit. Reply. In my state you have to be 14, so I'm pretty sure my sister and I are fine. Commenter. 5. Wait, you two are 16, right? Isn't that the age where you get a say over who has custody over you? Like you get to choose to be with your mom instead of your dad, right? Reply. I think we get to choose. My sister said we get to choose at 14. But I overheard my mom say something about us possibly not getting to choose. Commenter. 5. Well, that is just bullshit. Why shouldn't you get a choice? I hope everything turns out okay, and that he won't get 50-50 on you two, and that you get to spend the time with your mother and her awesome-sounding boyfriend. Reply. I looked it up, and we're in a state where there's no guarantee they'll take what you want into account, and you legally can't refuse visitation. So that sucks. Stories number 3. My husband is reluctant to be intimate with me after I was in a major accident. 30F have been married to my husband, 45 meters, for 5 years, and together for 8. Obviously, we have an age gap in our relationship, and whenever we discussed possible health issues or medical care, it was regarding him. About 4 months ago, I was in a car accident. I was talking on Bluetooth to my husband because I was nervous driving on the icy roads going to our house, when another car rounded a corner too fast and lost control. It was one of those exact wrong moment things, and my car went off the road and into a tree. My husband heard the whole thing, and my last memory before I lost consciousness was him screaming my name. I don't want to get into the bloody details, but I ended up being in the hospital for over a month. I needed multiple surgeries and have been in physical therapy ever since. I am finally getting to a point where I feel like myself again and am no longer in pain. I've gained back some weight and look good if I do say so myself. My husband literally worked out of my hospital room for the entire time I was there. He went home to shower, sleep, and look after the dogs, then came right back. He attended all my therapy appointments so he would know how to better help me recover at home. He was amazing and everything I could ask him to be in that kind of horrible situation. I love him so much, and so yesterday while shopping, I saw this gorgeous black lingerie set and decided to surprise him. We haven't had sex since before the accident, and every time I try, it feels like he makes an excuse or expresses some concern about some random body part of mine that is no longer injured. He was on his laptop in bed when I came in wearing my new purchases, and I could tell he was taken by surprise. I basically crawled into his lap and started kissing his neck and grinding on him. He was definitely hard, but then he lost it and pushed me away, saying that we shouldn't rush this and he doesn't want to jeopardize my recovery with sex. I was crying by the time he ended the sentence and said, "I'm fine. The doctors say sex is fine." But he was already walking into the bathroom and turning on the shower. I don't know what to think. Is it the scars? Is the memory of me in a hospital bed unable to even sit up by myself repelling him? I finally am starting to feel good about myself and my body again, and the fact that he won't touch me is really hurting my mental health. It's probably a long shot, but has anyone else experienced this? TLDR. I was in a major car accident and I'm finally back to myself, but my husband doesn't want to have sex with me. Comment from Oop. Thank you everyone for your kind comments. I think I realize that just because I physically feel better, it doesn't mean our lives can magically go back to normal. Which was basically what I was trying to do. We both went through a major trauma, and pretending it didn't happen will only be damaging to both of us. I can't say how much I love this man. He is my whole world, and the thought that he has been hurting but trying to protect me from it by staying silent makes me feel sick. The bottom line is, we both need to go to therapy to unpack everything that happened and develop some healthy coping mechanisms. Another part of this was we were trying for a baby before the accident, and I was excited to get back to it. Much love to everyone who commented. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Your husband literally worked out of your hospital room and only went home to shower and keep the dogs alive. Your husband loves you, and this is crystal clear. Like someone else has said, I don't think it's him feeling unattached to you or scars, etc. I think he is seeing your body now as a very fragile thing that he almost lost, He could very well possibly be traumatized from hearing the car accident in the phone call and seeing you in a hospital bed for weeks. I don't often suggest couples therapy, but I think it would behave him to help work this out with you in a setting like that. You're very precious to him, and while it isn't rational thinking, he could be terrified of damaging you in some way. Commenter 2. All of this. Also, have you tried just talking to him about it? Not in a, please have sex right now way, but in a, I think I'm ready to have sex again. How do you feel about that way? There's a lot going on here. A counselor would help, but some progress could be made by talking. Commenter 3. I don't think he doesn't find you attractive anymore. I don't think it's the scars. I think he's just shook to the core by the whole thing and scared of hurting you. Talk to him about it. Tell him. You'd understand if the trauma of the accident makes it hard for him to get in the mood. I'd just give him a bit of time to recenter. Tell him it might help him to talk to a therapist. Commenter 4. So, I'm not a mind reader, but his reaction makes a lot of sense to me when I think about the last 4 months from his perspective. He heard you scream, and then nothing from you. Presumably, he heard the crushing metal of the crash. For him, there was a period of time when he did not know if you were dead. Maybe he had to direct first responders to try to find you, and had to learn whether you were alive from them. The fact that you were in the hospital for more than a month says to me that he was almost certainly told you might die even once he learned you were alive. The fact that he lived in your hospital room was probably as much for him as for you, because, if he wasn't there and something happened, you might die and he wouldn't be able to stop it. It's very possible he spent that entire month in crushing fear, trying to consciously or subconsciously guard you from death. He almost certainly spent at least several days in that state. I'm assuming that the focus since then has been mostly on getting you physically okay. It's only been 4 months, and he's probably spent them all in caretaker mode. The thing about caretaker mode is that you push your own issues to the back. You don't focus on any healing you might need to do. Note that I'm not justifying that, necessarily. Sometimes people go into caretaker mode or stay in it not because somebody actually needs care, but because our own fear is too scary to face, and that mode keeps us from having to deal with it in the short term. For him, the trauma of being unsure if he would still have you tomorrow is still almost certainly unhealed. As for why he responded that way, people tend to store emotional pain they're not addressing yet in the body. Tight muscles, strained postures, clenching. People grind their teeth and bunch of their fists under stress for a reason, and we do similar things to the rest of our body. That kind of trauma can feel like a physical spring, stored under tension. When you went to initiate intimacy and started touching his body in a way that normally creates a strong reaction, you added those feelings on top of the stored feelings, but pulling in a different direction, and the spring destabilized and went off. You basically accidentally took the lid off a pressure cooker before it had a chance to vent. I think that's why his response was centered around fear for your safety, even though you're feeling much better and not worried yourself. All that trapped fear just kind of blew up in both your faces. If that's what happened, it's not necessarily anything in your relationship that needs to heal. It's just that he needs to step back now and take the time to face that shit down. I'd strongly recommend therapy to help him process. I also, on a personal level, find that crying tends to let some of that tension back out. I tend to use a Pixar movie to get the tears going. It sounds a little silly, but it helps some. Update, thanker. You again for everyone's kind and thoughtful comments. I read all of them even if I didn't respond. Last night when we got in bed, I curled up next to my husband and held him while I said basically, "We've been through a lot. Would you be willing to get therapy with me to make sure everything is all right for both of us? I love you so much, and I don't want any underlying trauma to affect our relationship." He was silent for about 10 seconds, and then the floodgates opened. I've only seen him cry once or twice in our entire relationship at our wedding, and the first time I told him I loved him, but I held him while he sobbed for what was probably an hour. He kept apologizing for it, and I had to keep saying, "Don't. Be sorry, I'm here. Cry if you need to cry." And I shed some tears of my own. It was an exhausting but ultimately extremely cathartic experience. When it was all over and he was able to say more than a few words, he told me that there was about 15 minutes when he was sure he had just heard the love of his life die. Then, we got to the hospital, and the doctors made it clear they would do everything they could, but the extent of my injuries were extreme and severe. Then he spent hours calling family members, waiting, pacing, and trying to grapple with the fact that I might die and he might be alone. Then I spent 5 days in the ICU, mostly unconscious. He said he's never known fear like that in his life. In the end, we agreed to go to individual and couples therapy, and even touched on the sex thing, wherein he admitted that he knows objectively nothing bad will happen to me if we have sex. But for some reason, it is sparking this protective instinct that makes him want to treat me like glass. So we're working on it, and our marriage is amazing. He's the love of my life, and we can get through this. Final update. That being said, when I wrote that, I was in a weird place. Physically, I had mostly healed, but I was determined to shove down any emotional trauma, because I was so exhausted from the previous months of work trying to heal my body. I wanted to be all right, and I wanted my marriage to be the same as it was before the accident. My husband and I just attended our 3rd marriage counseling appointment, and I'm very happy to report the exercises and worksheets we've been given are helping rebuild the husband-wife relationship instead of the caregiver-patient relationship, which has been present for the last 5 months. My husband just had his first individual therapy appointment a few days ago, and I have mine next week. In short, we're putting in the work. We're also having sex again. Like, a lot of sex. I feel silly bragging about that to the internet at large, but it makes me so happy that we've figured out that part of all this. Prior to the accident and really throughout our whole relationship, we've been so ridiculously into each other, it was rare we even skipped a day. I missed having that connection to him, and he was clearly hurting too. TLDR. We're getting better. Relevant comments. Commenter. 1. Hey OP. I've been thinking about your post. I am so glad to hear you guys have reconnected. It varies for everyone, but I understand intimacy being a huge part of your emotional needs in your relationship. I'm curious what you'd care to share about your husband's perspective, our breakthrough, etc. on this. I think it'd be helpful for some to hear whatever you care to share, and if not, or too private to oodly understand. Reply, honestly, it wasn't some big come-to-God moment. A few weeks after my original post, he had a crazy long workday. So I made his favorite dinner, and I was finishing it up when he came in. He kissed me really deeply and told me how much he loved me, and how grateful he was for me. Then he kissed me again, and we didn't stop. I kind of thought our first time back at it would be more romantic than the kitchen floor, haha, but it was honestly amazing. Afterward we talked and he confessed he didn't know why that was the moment, but he got home and things felt totally normal in the best way. We ate dinner naked in bed, and I honestly have never felt closer to him in my life. We're very lucky. Commenter 2, dreamy LOL. I don't know what you're talking about, sounds romantic as all heck to me. Well, that's great. As evident from your update, it sounds like you guys aren't letting off the gas on the therapy, which is awesome. It can't do anything but help. How are you feeling? Are you still in PT? How's it all coming along? We're all rooting for you. Reply, thank you. Yes, I'm still in PT. I had some neurological damage which has been the hardest to get past, but I am now working on fine motor skills, so we're in the home stretch. Not to brag, but I wrote my name with a pen the other day, which was a huge deal for me. It's been a long road, but I feel great. My relationship is awesome, and I'm hoping to get back to work next month. Fingers crossed. Commenter 3. This gives me hope. I'm currently a caregiver to my fiancé after serious illness that had him in the hospital for 3 months, and still recovering at home as we approach a year since hospitalization. Caregiving is hard, and I'm still working through the trauma of watching him bleed out in front of me, but I still feel guilty that I can't give him what he wants. He's so patient and understanding, but I haven't been able to explain why. I think I'm just not mentally safe yet. Your post has given me the words to explain why to him. Thank you. Reply, I am so happy that our experience helped even one person. It helps me feel like something good came from the worst experience of my life. I actually deferred to my husband on advice for this one, and what he said was basically that he was walking around with this tightness in his chest for months, like he was in physical pain and constantly ready to react. The last few months it started to fade and even disappear at times, but it still comes back on occasion, and it's paralyzing. He says not to beat yourself up if some days are harder than others, but hold on to those moments of normalcy and try to enjoy them. Stories number 4. Entitled Neighbor tries to claim to my delivery package is theirs. I got home from work a little while ago and got a notification that my package was almost here. I go to wait for my delivery, and when I get there the truck is there. The driver knows me, and as I'm signing for my package, my entitled neighbor storms over but keeps a distance and demands the package the delivery driver has. If you've read my past stories, this is the same neighbor who has a restraining order on her from me. She tried having her sister and her sister's kids trespass on my property, etc. She hasn't learned her lesson. The driver tells her that it's not her package, and he can't give her the package. She continued to demand the package, saying if she doesn't get given it, she'll just storm over and grab it. I tell her if she takes another step forward, she's breaking the set number of how close the restraining order says she can get near me. She doesn't care, and marches over, then screams, "Because of you, I'm separated from my husband and heading for divorce." I told her if she hadn't acted the way she's been acting towards me, her husband wouldn't be doing such a thing because he grew tired of her entitled behavior. She eventually went off back to her house. Update. I got the delivery driver's name and number so they can prove they witnessed neighbor break the restraining order, then called the police. The last thing I heard while being outside a few minutes ago was a loud scream of, "I didn't break any fucking restraining order." Update the next morning, 8/30/2025. I went down to my mailbox and entitled neighbor's husband walks over. He's not on the restraining order and says he's not sorry for the loud scream she was yelling at the police and got herself arrested for breaking the terms of the restraining order, assaulting an officer, and for resisting arrest. She just tried to call him a few minutes earlier asking for bail, but he told her he's not paying for that. Comments. Commenter. She broke the order. Call the police and have her arrested. Commenter 2. Just a suggestion from a former Amazon delivery driver, have your stuff sent to an Amazon delivery box if they're available near your location. You won't have to deal with that nonsense anymore. Well, at least with Amazon packages. Commenter 3. You gotta start recording the front area of your house and report when she violates the restraining order, or she'll never learn. You should also not be engaging her at all. That's a violation on your end. Just ignore and report. Commenter 4. Call the cops and ask for the driver's phone as an independent witness that she violated the order. Stories number 5. Aita for breaking up with my BF. Because he forgot me at the airport? I, 28F, have been in a long-distance relationship for about 5 months with Eric, M, 28. He lives in a town that either takes 12 hours to drive to 7 hours by train or an hour flight. Valentine's Day was coming up, so I bought a flight to go see him so we could spend a week together and celebrate together. When I got up in the morning, I started sending him snaps of me getting to the airport and about being exited to see him. When I got to the airport, I messaged him that I would see him in a bit, but there was no reply. This is when my gut feeling started telling me something was off, but I pushed it away, hoping that I was just overreacting. When I landed, I messaged him that I would see him soon, but to no reply. I was still hoping so hard. When the arrivals door opened, I was so hopeful that he was there, but in the end I was heartbroken to see he wasn't. I felt so undervalued and embarrassed because I started crying in a corner of the airport. I had only come to this city to see him, and I was staying with him, so what was I gonna do? I called him over and over to no reply, then decided, fuck him, I'm gonna go do my own thing. I ended up at a pub drinking tea, and after about an hour there, he messaged me, not called, but sent me a damn message. His excuse was that he had fallen asleep, and that he was sorry. I honestly felt so betrayed because how can I not be worth setting a damn alarm? In the end, I ended up staying with him because I couldn't afford a hotel or to change my flight, and that's when I found out that he was staying up at night playing video games. When I got home, I decided that I couldn't be with someone who undervalues me so much and broke up with him. At the time, he agreed, but now he's sent me a love letter declaring his love and that he's sorry for everything and doesn't want to lose me. I feel like I'm overthinking things and just need some advice. Did I overreact to him not picking me up at the airport? Aita for breaking up with my BF because he forgot me at the airport? Edit to clarify. We made these plans together 2 months before I left. He was well aware of when and where I was arriving, and he was the one who offered to come get me. Secondly, I posted here about this now because I just received the love letter today. Comments. Commenter. 1. It took him 7 months to send that letter? After he fell asleep and forgot to get you at the airport after you spent money, effort, and time to come see him? Honey, throw the letter where it belongs, in the trash, next to him. Commenter 2, wasn't Valentine's Day 7 months ago? It's like he finished playing a long video game and suddenly realized he has no girlfriend anymore. What a dud. Ignore him, NTA. Commenter 3, I get making a mistake, even missing the alarm, or falling asleep. What stands out is how he responded to this. Just sent you a quick text? No call, no profusely apologizing, no make it up, no nothing. That's why you should break up. People make mistakes. It happens, and will always happen. It's how you handle those mistakes that matters. Commenter 4. Do not fall for the after-breakup love bombs. It always leads to a toxic cycle in my experience. So many relationships, I wish I had just ignored those and wasted time on people who already showed me their true colors. Cringe update. Aita for breaking up with my BF because he forgot me at the airport. Just to be clear, the cringe is me, hilariously. Dumb, but cringe all the same. I've hesitated to post this because if this gets back to him, he'll definitely know it's about him, so it's been almost a year since I 29F posted my story about breaking up with my ex, 28M, and I just want to give a quick thank you to everyone who reached out and reality checked me. I needed it. Y'all are da bomb. Now, on to my updated, so I took y'all's advice-ish, and stuck to my guns about being broken up. But I'm the kind of person who hates being the bad guy, so I told him we could still be friends and he accepted. Looking back, I definitely think he was hoping for another chance. We kept hanging out every so often and it was a good time. Couple weeks go by and I met someone new, and I wanted to do the right thing and tell my ex in person. So after a hangout I'm walking with him to the bus, nervous because I hate confrontation and I'm thinking, shit, it's now or never. So I took a breath and proceeded. Me. So, I wanted to tell you something because I wanted to be honest with you, ex. Looking a bit trepidations. Okay, me. I wanted to let you know that I've started seeing someone, and give you a heads up, ex. Silence. X. Now starting to rub his head and looking as sad. I had a nightmare last night, where you told me you were dating someone and now this happens. Me. Has no idea WTF to say to that. Brain blackout. I have no idea WTF came over me, but I proceeded to raise my hands and give jazz hands, and say in a kinda chalked-off small voice, me. You have powers, said like powers now. To this day, still don't know why TF I did what I did, and it still cracks me up. I mean, where the heck did that come from? My friends think it's hilarious, and my mom just gave me a high five while laughing. My ex just turned around and walked into the darkness, and I haven't seen or heard from him since. I guess I unlocked a secret hack in the game of life. I hope y'all enjoy this story as much as I do. The end. Comments. Commenter 1. Okay, that's funny. How's your relationship with your current partner going? Reply. It didn't really go anywhere, but he was a good guy all the same. Thanks for asking. Commenter 2. Is he still out there? In the dark? Can someone check on him? Commenter 3. That's amazing. You're definitely the one with magic powers. One jazz hands and the guy disappears. Commenter 4. You need to learn to be okay with being the bad guy. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in difficult situations that you may not be able to get yourself out of. It's hard to get. Society teaches girls to put others before them. You need to be selfish and a bitch sometimes. Be proud of yourself when you are one. It'll get easier as you get older. Trust me stories. Number 6 Aita for taunting my ex's widow after she lost her court case for visitation with my son. The father of my son 4 left me for someone else when I 25F was 6 months pregnant. Ex and this woman Mavis married when my son was 3 weeks old roughly. They demanded she come to his visits with our son and I refused. My reason? They said he needed to get to know his mom as well as his dad, and she was definitely his mom now. They were married and everything. And yeah, that's how they argued it. I never stopped him from seeing our son, but I didn't allow her anywhere near my home, and our son was 10 months old before X could take him out for visitation. Then I could do nothing about her being there, but at least she wasn't calling herself my son's mom in my home. She did join my ex every time he dropped our son home with me, and she would try to start a fight because I wouldn't let her hold him. To say goodbye, once ex handed our son to me. She'd get mad, I would refuse to let her spend time alone with our son too. Ex was awarded every other weekend visitation when our son was 18 months old. He lost that visitation when our son was 2 because his wife tried to take our son out of daycare without permission and the cops had to be called. He went back to visits at my house and she was not allowed near my house or my son. That softened after a few more months. She had to issue an apology and take some classes, and then every other weekend restarted. Then my ex died last year. My son was with me at the time, so there was no fight to get him back, or her trying to run with him or anything, and I think she'd have tried to keep my son if ex died during his visitation weekends. Mavis then tried to sue me for shared custody as his other parent. That case was thrown out because she was not a legal parent and had no parental rights to my son. Instead, she tried to sue for visitation, and unfortunately that went to court. It took a few months and we had 2 dates before the judge in order to get a ruling. She was denied visitation. It was decided she had not played a big enough role in my son's life, and she wasn't his family anymore. I was relieved. Mavis was screaming about appeals as we left court. She tried to confront me a week after court, and I was feeling so done with her shit, and I taunted her and told her she would never be in my son's life again, and go fuck herself because she's all alone now, and with the way she acts it didn't surprise me. She started screaming after me, but I kept going. It was only afterward I wondered if it was unfair because she did lose my ex, and she might have felt some genuine care for my son IDK. I think she's just unhinged. But maybe I was still an commenter. 1 NTF, she keeps contacting you. Keep track of everything for a paper trail, as you may need to get a restraining order against her. Also double and triple check that daycare and/or school knows she is not allowed to take him. They probably already know this, but it sounds like she may try regardless. Hopefully your little man is doing all right after losing his father. Commenter 2. Adding to this, don't block her yet if you haven't already OP. Mute her, but let her text you, don't answer calls. It'll help give you ammo you may need for future restraining orders. I don't know if you're maintaining contact with father's family or not, but if he visits them, with or without you, make it clear she is not to be near him after her little kidnapping. Attempt to document everything as if you were handing it over to the police, both historical and as stuff continues. Times, dates, facts, and witnesses. Hopefully you will never need to use it. Commenter 3, Gantante. She wanted your child for her own, and it looks like given the option she will try to steal him anyway. Be very aware and protect him, and you reply, I've got a ton of protection measures in place. I had to do that before my ex died because I never trusted her after that daycare incident. Commenter 4. Nope. She sounds unhinged. I would consider moving and making sure she doesn't know where. NTS Tories number 7 AITA for telling my best friend, I don't want her boyfriend to come on my holiday vacation. My family and I go on Christmas vacation every year, and this year it's just my mom and I. I decided to invite my best friend to have someone to go out with since my old mama doesn't like to go out too late. My mom had paid for the hotels, and we only had to pay for our flights. Since I invited my friend, she has started dating someone new who I have yet to hang out with and get to really know. Today she dropped the bomb on me that her boyfriend wants to come down for the second half of our trip, so they can spend New Year's together. I totally understand that, with a new crush, you want to be together and have special moments with, but I feel like I'm going to be turned into a third wheel on a vacation I invited her to be a part of. We are spending the first half in a quiet town in France and second half in Paris, where we've both talked about going to for a while, and we talked about going out to bars and clubs together once my mom goes back to the hotel in the evening. I feel kind of used that, okay, you'll take the free hotel for the first half, but when we get to Paris you'll leave me for your boyfriend. Even if she did leave to go do stuff with her boyfriend, I'd feel awkward knowing we're both in a country. We talked about visiting together for so long but not hanging with each other. When she asked today and I said I didn't feel comfortable, she seemed pissed, and we kind of dropped the conversation. I just had a whole girl trip planned out and now feel like including someone I barely know is just gonna throw off the vibe. Am I an asshole to stick to my "No, he's not welcome" stance, even if it causes a rift in our friendship? Comments. Commenter 1 NTA. You invited your friend, not a +1 you barely know. Your trip? Your vibe. Third wheeling on your own. Vacation sounds miserable. Commenter 2. It's quite common actually and wasn't OP's idea. My mom always did the same thing with me, and later my little brother once he was in his late teens. We'd spend the day together, then the young'uns would go out on the town. What we didn't do was bring our friend's boyfriend, girlfriend with us. That's unbelievable, and I would personally be thinking heavily about bringing a different friend. The last thing OP needs is her friend sulking for the entirety of the trip simply because her entitlement was shut down. Commenter 3. Hey, I was looking for a fun girls' trip with my beastie. I don't think being the third wheel at a NYE party will be much fun. I'll understand if you don't want to come. See what she decides, and if she chooses to stay home, ask a different friend to come. Commenter 4 NTA. The invitation was for your friend to accompany you and your mother on a Christmas holiday. Not your friend and her +1. The ball's in her court. If she'd rather spend the break with her new boyfriend, she can stay home and you can invite someone who will appreciate the invitation. Her suggestion her paramour join was as ridiculous as it was inconsiderate. Stories. Number 8. My wife 28F found out that my mother 59F and I 28M have been lying to her about our baby 0M for months. This all went down about an hour ago and my wife is still crying in our bathroom with the door locked. Backstory. We had our son now, 11 months old, while my wife is in residency. She took a few weeks off before giving birth, and then went back to work a few months after, while I transitioned my hours to part-time so that I could stay at home and raise our son. My mom moved in with us shortly after the birth in order to help out, which allows me to get in the few hours of work per day and also not get swamped with taking care of the baby child housework. She's quite old-fashioned and would definitely not prefer this arrangement with me being a stay-at-home dad, but she hasn't said anything to either of us and has been a great help. For anyone unfamiliar with medical residency, it is brutal. My wife has just over a year left. Sometimes she comes and goes for 1 to 3 days, and our son is asleep the whole time she's home, which has been happening more as his sleep schedule shifted to sleeping through the night. My mom and I make sure that when she's home and the baby is awake, my wife gets him 100%. I know it's been hard on her, but unfortunately it's just going to be this way for another year. The first big milestone she missed was him rolling over. When she got home, my mom pulled her over to the baby all excited. I thought she was going to tell her, but instead she says, "Julie, you came home right on time. He's been moving about as if he's going to roll over." They both stood there encouraging him, and right on cue he rolls. My wife was elated. She was so worried and guilty about not being there, and she took it as proof that she can still be a present mother while working, so we continued. I send texts over little things she misses through the day so that it's not completely unbelievable, but my wife has been present for every single big milestone. He coincidentally started crawling, with her right there. His first words were in front of her, and he began standing, cruising, and walking when she happened to be home. The walking one was difficult. There was a tough 7-day stretch where she just wasn't home during the daytime when he was awake, and his walking went from teetering to walking a couple steps pretty confidently in that time. We put little beanbags in one of his pants pockets so he'd be wobbly and unbalanced, and it looked believable since he fell after the first step like he was doing a week ago. Yes, it was mean to our poor son, but my wife's face was worth it. Today it all unraveled, so far he can just say mama, dada, and nana. Yesterday he started saying bye-bye. My wife has today off and has been home all morning. My mom and I have been trying to get him to say bye all day without giving it away that we already know he can say bye. Successfully got him to say bye to the ducks at the park, and we both gushed over his newest word the whole way home. My wife was using my phone to take pictures of him, and began showing my mom at home while telling her about his newest word acquisition. She was swiping through my gallery and saw a video from yesterday and goes, "Oh, you never sent me this one." It was literally like a slow-motion film happening in front of my eyes. I had taken the video of him yesterday waving bye-bye. My wife isn't an idiot. She figured the whole ruse out pretty much instantly. I've never seen her look so upset and heartbroken before. I couldn't say or do anything to comfort her. Now she's locked herself in the bathroom crying and won't come out. I'm on our bed hoping someone can please tell me what to do to make this better. Tell doctor. My mom and I lied to my wife about our son's milestones for months, and she just found out relevant comments. Commenter 1. Oh God. The title read as if you and your mom had a baby together, and I was like dying. So this didn't seem as bad after thinking that. Commenter 2. This is a difficult situation. Right now my suggestion would be to give your wife space. She needs to process this. It's hard, but the fact is that you can't do anything to fix what she's feeling. Her emotions are incredibly heightened, not only from new motherhood but from stress and pressure, and they're hers to ride out until she's ready to be helped. And frankly, she might not want that help from you. While I understand why you did what you did, and I see the love and compassion that fueled the choice, you and your mother were dishonest in a very complex and conspiratorial way. That's simply it. And your wife, even if she also sees the love behind the choices you made, has been impacted by your dishonesty. She has been wronged. Right now, it's most important that you don't try to fix or chase away that feeling, because if you do, you will not lay a foundation to build up from this low and difficult point. Let your wife decide when she's ready to talk and be helped, and what form that help will take. Give her that space. Reply, I feel terrible. I genuinely just considered them little white lies that significantly improved her happiness and didn't harm anyone. I love her so much, and this is not what I wanted for her at all. I'm worried she's never going to forgive me. Commenter 3. I'm so sorry. I have some things to say, but first, can you please tell me if these little lies were mostly your mom's idea? Reply, no. Just the first time, then it was mostly me. If you're thinking that it was done deliberately, I know there's a lot of anti-Mael sentiment around, but my wife and my mom both consider the other their parent-child. When my wife is home, my mom will leave us entirely alone to spend time together. She didn't do this to hurt her. Commenter 4. Stop lying and start recording or live streaming these things to her. Commenter 5. Oh gosh, you all sound like you're trying to do the best you can. I think it's sweet that you and your mother are trying hard to make your wife feel less bad about being so busy with work. Lying is not black and white. You all have good intentions. Update. My wife, 28F, found out that my mother, 59F, and I, 28M, have been lying to her about me and my wife's baby, 0M, for months. After I wrote the original post, my mom took my son to stay overnight with my wife's sisters so that the two of us could have the house to ourselves. We pretty much just talked for an hour while constantly reaffirming that we love each other a lot and want to sort this out. I apologized and explained why I did what I did. She said that feeling like she was there for our son's milestones was really just a band-aid solution that didn't actually convince her she was present. She said that if she actually had been using the milestones to feel like she was present, this would probably have felt worse for her. But since she wasn't, in her words, deluding herself into thinking she's actually home, her main issue was that I lied, which hurt her feelings. I apologized and explained that I honestly thought that she would prefer the lying if given the choice. She said she understood where I was coming from and that she felt betrayed when she realized, but she sees that I was doing it because I love her, and she thinks we'll probably laugh about it with our grandkids one day. Yes, I am very aware I don't deserve my wife. Some things came out on my end that I wasn't going to tell her and didn't mention in my last post, namely that I'm scared she's going to become suicidal. My uncle committed suicide when I was a child, in part from working in a high-stress job where he made a huge and costly mistake. One of my wife's colleagues attempted suicide while she was on mat leave. Being a working mom is bad enough. Being a resident in this program is bad enough. Both combined are a recipe for trouble. Since our son was born and the incident with her colleague happened, I've been afraid that if her home life wasn't perfect, it would push her over the edge. Anyways, she reassured me that that's not happening, and I think saying it out loud also made me realize it's a pretty irrational, groundless fear. We ordered takeout and sat together watching the real videos I have of all our son's firsts. I also have a special folder of pictures, videos of my son with my wife, so we went through that after. She almost choked from laughing so hard when I tentatively revealed the beanbag trick. I am the laughingstock of her friend group chat. So I guess We're already at the stage where we're laughing about it. TLDR. Marriage is work. I am stupid. We moved past it. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I've always heard that no firsts ever happen in daycare. Until mom sees it happening, it didn't happen. Many grandparents feel the same way. Reply, that is adorable. I'm actually wondering now if I've missed any firsts myself while I was working during the day, and my mom had the baby. Odds are I did, which is hilarious to think about. I may have unearthed a 3-person deep multi-level milestone marketing scheme. Commenter. 2. My first job after high school was in a daycare, and they literally told us this in training. If you think you saw their first steps or heard their first words, you were mistaken. Commenter 3. You guys are going to be just fine. You listen to each other, try to understand one another, and are able to express your feelings. Keep it up. Commenter 4. So I don't have any advice, but I am one of 3 children born to a family med physician mom. My mom had my older sister during med school, me during residency, and my younger sister a year into her practice. My dad worked part-time, and his mom was our daycare provider, our whole lives. Grandma still babysits the puppies for my parents, Sure, my mom missed a ton of milestones, but you know what? None of us kids know that she missed them. My mom would come home and love on us. She'd come home for lunch after my younger sister was born, and I remember eating yogurt with her on the floor. I remember helping her dig the car out of the snowbank at the end of the driveway after she got home from working urgent care late into the evening. My dad and I are really close, and I'm sure that has something to do with him being around more when I was a baby, but I'm also really close with my mom. I learned women can do whatever they want to do and have a family. I learned that kids don't have to be the absolute center of your world to be happy and healthy. I hope your wife doesn't put too much pressure on herself about missing these things. Your kid won't know the difference and will love you and your wife no matter what. Reply. Thank you for your insight. We're optimistic that as she gains seniority, it'll be more like what you described. The baby's only going to be 2 when she's done, probably won't even have any memories of this period. Commenter 5. Would have been ironic had your child hit another milestone while at your sister's house with your mom. Reply, thanks for the laugh. That would really have elevated this to sitcom level. Commenter 6. No lie, I teared up reading this because you guys seem to have the best relationship, and your wife seems like such a chill, stable lady. I'm so happy for you too. Reply, well thanks. I showed her this post, so she will definitely be bringing your comment up multiple times. Wifey. I'm preemptively letting you know that an internet stranger calling you chill and stable does not mean you aren't the biggest drama queen I've ever met in my life. Cough NBA playoffs. Cough stories. Number 9. I hate my ex-husband and his wife. I just got a long email from my kid's stepmom, pretty much telling me that she doesn't mind giving the kids extra clothing to go to school so long as they get it back from my house, because the issue isn't who bought it, but the issue is getting decent clothing back. At the same time, I get a text message from my ex-husband berating me because I didn't clip my son's fingernails on this trip because I can't find my nail clippers. I have a household of 5, and I am the only income. My kids don't get brand new clothing at my house. My kids have to wear their clothing until it's threadbare, because I can't afford to run out and get them new clothes, or even to go to Goodwill and get them clothes all the time. I do the best I can on an income of $42,000 for a family of 5. I don't get child support for my ex-husband, and between him and his wife, they make 80 to 90 grand a year depending on how busy his business is. I'm currently in college, trying to get my bachelor's degree, and it's not cheap or easy to try to do that and work full-time and take care of my kids. And I returned the 2 of them always point out what I'm doing wrong, how my kids are suffering because I am in school, and I can't spend a lot of time with them, and just generally picking me apart. I hate them. I'm trying so hard to hold it all together and do the best I can, and it's never enough, and I really truly feel hatred for those 2, and I hate it. I'm sorry if my rate doesn't make sense. Right now, I have to use talk to text because my phone screen is cracked, and it doesn't read my finger tapping correctly. Thank you for giving me a space and a moment to get that off my chest and rant a little bit. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You are doing the best you can, and I am sure your kids know you love them. You should try to get some child support. Sounds like he is getting off easily. Reply, the last time we went to court, the only thing that happened is I got the ability and the right to claim the children on taxes every year until they are adults. The majority of his business he gets in paid cash under the table and the little bit of cash he doesn't get paid under the table or that he does claim is not enough to get child support from him. And they don't look at his wife's income, so I've been through this. Maybe if I get into a better financial situation and can afford a lawyer, I'll revisit it. I only have 2 more years, and then I'll have my degree. Commenter 2. If he makes that much money, why aren't you getting child support? Reply. Because on paper I make more than him because he doesn't report his full earnings, and I have no way of proving that. I've been through this for the last 4 years. I only have 2 children in common with him, and on paper I make almost double what he makes, and they don't look at his wife's income. Where is the other father of the older kids? Reply. Deceased, he passed away in 2016. Commenter 3. If he makes that much money, why aren't you getting child support? Commenter 4. She said they make 80-90 a year between them. That means he also only makes about the same as OP, but has a partner who contributes to their household. Stepmom is not responsible for paying child support. Reply. She makes the bulk at $65K a year. He underreports his earnings because he's flaunted he makes $30-40K a season, but he reports $10-15K. Unless he's lied to me, which could be the case too, but knowing him I doubt it. Commenter 4. Is it underreporting or just business expenses that take away from his gross income causing him to pay less tax? I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure her income wouldn't count. Reply. Her income doesn't count. I've been dealing with this for going on 5 years now. I've gone to court several times. With my clinicals starting this fall and the work load for nursing school increasing, I don't have it in me to fight a court battle too. At least not right now. I just need to focus on getting through the next 2 years and getting licensed. Did the ex turn the kids against OOP? Reply. He plays favs with the twins, boy-girl, and my daughter is starting to notice. His own actions are turning them against him. I will never speak poorly of him to them and when he doesn't show to events. Like their birthday party this year, I make it a point to tell them he was really sick or something along those lines. Life's hard enough, and they don't need to feel unwanted or not important by my words or actions. OP on her oldest kids having a job. Reply. My 15-year-old does. He's saving for a car. He is my oldest. You have to be 14 here to hold a job, so my middle has another year. OP on blocking the stepmother. Reply. She has my number blocked, which is why she emails me. She blocked me after my daughter said stepmom pulled her hair when she was mad at her. I asked her to explain, and she blocked my number. Turns out she brushed my daughter's hair roughly and pulled it because my daughter was refusing to listen that morning. Not even remotely okay, but legally I was told no crime was committed, and I could have it documented, but that was it. BTW, I did have it documented. Additional information from OOP after reading comments. Reply. I'll report him to the IRS again. The vast majority of you are amazing, and I really appreciate the suggestions. It can't hurt to keep reporting for the extreme few who say I shouldn't have had kids if I couldn't afford them. I was fine, then got married, became a stay-at-home mom with my twins, my youngest. We moved to a new state where I had 0 family or support, but he had his family. Then, after a year there, he cheated on me. When we finally divorced, everything was split 50-50. Guess what? We had no savings, and with only his income I didn't walk out with much. I hate that I have shared custody where I have to deal with someone who verbally and mentally abused me. I love the suggestion of the co-parenting app, and will be looking into it more. OOP on her ex paying child support. We have 50-50 custody. I technically make more than him. Update 1. I'm a RN now. My kids have new clothes, and thanks to your advice, I was able to keep them in really nice clothes until I was able to afford new stuff. 2. I have a BF. This is relevant. My ex made fraudulent claims about him to DCF. He was eventually told if he continued, then the police would be involved. He still has moments where he slips up, but he's been more helpful and less condescending. By a lot. Thank you to whoever suggested the parenting app. The court agreed it was a good move. and I think that above all else has made a huge difference. Not sure who cares, but I wanted to say thanks. Stories number 10 WIB-TA. If I told my Mael she can only come visit my daughter if she doesn't bring the other grandkids? My husband's parents live 2 hours away, and they are the primary care providers for their other 2 grandchildren, my nephew ages 3 and 5. My husband and I both work weekdays, so we try to go visit them with our 1-year-old daughter at least every other month on weekends. The only problem is my MIL works weekends, so we often don't get to spend much time with her during our visits. There have been a few occasions that my MIL has told us that she's coming to visit during the weekdays, but it presents challenges for me. I work from home while simultaneously caring for my daughter, and I'm also pregnant. It's hectic and hard, and it's only a temporary thing, but for now it's my only option, and I'm struggling through it. When my MIL comes to visit, she wants to spend time with my daughter, which I completely understand, but she sometimes has to bring one or both of my nephews with her. She also never tells me or my husband which nephews she'll be bringing. She just shows up with one or both of them. That leaves me pretty much babysitting either one or both of my nephews while I'm trying to work. I end up having to entertain them, trying to find food for them, and they're picky, so it's not a quick thing, and last time I'm pretty sure my 5-year-old nephew peed his pants on my living room couch, while my MIL was taking a 3-hour nap with my baby, leaving him completely unattended. It's not conducive to me being able to work at all, and I am irritated that these visits are making my life harder. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant, and everything is hard. We visited our in-laws somewhat recently, and my MIL pretty much told me that she'd be coming for a visit sometime soon on a Tuesday. This means that I will be trying to work, and I'm genuinely concerned that I will have a meltdown if she leaves me in charge of watching my nephews at all while I'm trying to work. Would I be the asshole if I said she can come down but can't bring the kids? Edit. Thank you all so much for the encouragement. The responses I've gotten make me feel so much more confident in approaching my husband about this. Update. I spoke with my husband. He read the post and most of the comments, some of which made him laugh out loud. He'd love to take time off work to help me, but he owns a business that is slightly short-staffed right now, which makes it impossible to take extra days off aside from when the baby is born. We agreed that if MIL brings it up again and tries to come, that we will tell her that my work has been very hard lately, and I've been struggling to manage with low energy. Given my workload right now, the options are for her to come on a weekend when he's off work, come on a weekday without either grandchild, or wait until I've had the baby and had some time to recover, then come when it works for me. Comments. Commenter. 1. That doesn't work for me. Hubby needs to be there. Tell her no more visitors until you say so. Do not answer the door. Commenter. 2. NTA. Your husband should tell her. Bringing the nephews doesn't work for us. Wife has work to do and can't babysit or entertain them while you are here. Maybe another time when I am home too, so I can help. Commenter 3. NTA. Just let her know you're really trying to focus on working while you're getting last-minute things done prior to having the newest edition. Ask if she can please come without other children, because you will not have the ability to help watch them, and you'd like her to be able to just focus on your daughter before she is no longer an only child. You're not wrong for feeling that way, but you have to think about the way that you present that information to her. Stories number 11. I have a black eye right now. The comments from men have been disturbing. So I have a black eye right now, courtesy of slipping over in the shower. Make sure those grip mats are stuck down, people. Aside from the black eye and a bruised ego, I'm fine and have been living as normal, going to work, doing the shopping, just living life. One thing I've noticed since having a swollen dark blue and purple eye is the stark differences in reactions between men and women. I'd say around 20% of the reactions from men have been sympathetic. 100% of the women have expressed concern and sympathy. Yesterday, I was getting some things from my local store when 2 men came down the same aisle as me. One looked at the other and said, "Someone must have burned dinner," with a smug grin on his face. They shared a laugh and I brushed it off as ignorance. The day after it happened, I had to go to work. I got into the staff room and was almost immediately asked by a male co-worker, "What did you do to make him mad?" I just rolled my eyes and walked away. Later that day at lunch, 2 older men were speculating how I got the shiner. She must have pissed her boyfriend off. Women these days just aren't as obedient as they used to be, said one. Good women are hard to come by now. She probably did something to deserve it. Women just don't respect men anymore, said the other. The bar for men is so low, and yet they still somehow manage to limbo under it. Ugh, comments. Commenter 1. You think domestic violence is funny. Commenter 2. Those are super fucked up responses. Anyone saying that at my office would be reprimanded or fired. Commenter 3. When they say disgusting things like, "What did you do to make him mad?" Ask them, "What do you mean?" Watch them squirm. Explaining a joke about domestic violence. They realize it's not so funny when they have to explain it. That really works. You put them back in their place. This works really well with sexist jokes too. I hope your eye gets better soon. Stories number 12. I refused to lend my brother money after he refused me. Years ago, am I the hypocrite? I'm feeling conflicted and guilty right now, but I also feel like I'm finally standing up for myself. Years ago, when I was in college, I was struggling to pay rent and tuition. I asked my older brother for help, not a huge amount, just a few $100s to get me through that semester. He had a stable job back then, but he refused, saying he didn't believe in handouts and that I needed to learn responsibility. I cried that night, but I figured, okay, lesson learned. Fast forward to now. I'm doing well financially, while my brother recently got into trouble with debt after making a few bad business decisions. Last week he called me asking if I could lend him $5,000 to cover his mortgage, and promised he'd pay me back in 6 months. I hesitated but told him no. I reminded him of the time I needed help and he turned me down. He got angry and said, "That was different. You were a kid, I wanted you to learn." He called me selfish and said I'm punishing him for the past. The thing is, I could afford to help him, but deep down I don't want to. I struggled alone when I needed support the most, and he chose to teach me a lesson. Now I feel like he's facing his own lesson, and somehow I'm the bad guy? My parents are upset with me and keep saying, "Family should help family," but I can't shake the feeling that this is finally me setting boundaries. Part of me worries I'm being petty, but another part of me thinks I'm just protecting myself after years of being the one who had to survive alone. Am I really the hypocrite for saying no now? Comments. Commenter 1. NTA. BS. Family helps. Family or family comes first. That's what toxic people say. Don't feel guilty for not giving him money. $5K is a lot. You aren't responsible for his mistakes. Your parents can help him. You did it on your own, don't let them try to destroy that. Don't let others tell you how to spend your money. Reply, honestly, I have been feeling so guilty because of the family helps family line my parents keep repeating. But you're right. It feels really unfair when it only goes one way. I worked hard to get where I am without anyone's help, and I don't think it's wrong to set boundaries now. I love my brother, but $5K is a huge amount, and I can't just ignore how he treated me back then. It's not about revenge, it's about protecting myself. I really appreciate your perspective, it makes me feel less alone in this. Commenter 2, NTA. He didn't believe in handouts when you were struggling. Too many people are like this today. It's good for everyone else to struggle, but not them. I'm glad you told him why you're refusing now. That said, don't let bad people make you into a bad person. It's good and natural to be generous and help others, but don't cast pearls before swine. Find people who will appreciate and reciprocate. Reply. Exactly, that's what bothers me the most. When I needed help, I was told to figure it out, but now I'm expected to step in. I agree with you though, I don't want this to turn me into someone bitter. I'd rather save my generosity for people who truly value and respect it. Commenter 3. Family takes family for granted. Even if you were to loan $5K, there's no guarantee. He'd pay you back in 6 months. He needs a new roof, a new car, had to fix plumbing. Typically, loaners find out their hard-earned money was spent frivolously when they see Instagram photos of the sibling on a vacay because stress, needed to get away. Parents take care of their kids. Siblings are not obligated. No good deed goes unpunished. Reply. Exactly this. That's one of my biggest worries. I could lend him the money and then watch him spend it on something completely unnecessary. leaving me frustrated and resentful. You're right. Parents take care of their kids. Siblings shouldn't be pressured into fixing someone else's mistakes. I'd rather protect my peace than end up regretting it later. Stories. Number 13. My husband's parents intended on objecting at our wedding, but were stopped by others, and I always suspected it. And just got real proof, 6 years later. I feel like I need a space to just talk about this. Glad I found you all. Last month I went to a family BBQ run by my husband's uncle. Normally I don't go to these things for reasons that will soon be extremely clear, but Uncle said he wanted to tell me something, and my husband wanted me there, so I went. Now keep in mind, I have barely spoken to this guy since my wedding, which was also the first time we ever met, where he invited me to dance and then told me that I wasn't investing in the family enough, and refused to elaborate, and then told me that if I was in a coma, nobody would come visit me. To which I then told him I wouldn't want him there, and that I don't know him. He wrote me a couple of very typical boomer apology emails over the years. You probably know the type. I'm a good guy, I promise I was well-intentioned. But never. Saying that he's sorry, so yeah. He brought me to the BBQ, and then the uncle waits until everyone is gone, and he tells me this. Parents-in-law never thought that I was an appropriate partner for their son. The primary reason is that they hate that I make more money than my husband. They hate that their son is a nerd, and that he married another nerd, and it's not what they wanted for him. We also moved across the country when we got engaged, and they blame me entirely for it, and they think that I'm controlling him. They each visited my husband 2 to 3 weeks before the wedding separately, with the intention of bringing my husband back home with them and calling off the wedding, but he wouldn't go for it. At the wedding they were going to object but were stopped by the uncle. To this day the parents shit on me to anyone that will listen, so I basically sat there and listened and asked a bunch of questions, feigned ignorance, but didn't give him any of my cards. But the truth is I already knew most of this stuff. But this was the first time I had been confronted with hard evidence. From my POV during the wedding, the parents-in-law refused to talk to me the entire wedding. The dad gave a really awful speech about how poorly his son turned out, with the main focus being on how he should have been into basketball, instead of being a nerd. The uncle and parents-in-law disappeared all the way up until seconds before the ceremony, and again for more than an hour during the dinner, which I found highly suspicious at the time. The uncle said inappropriate things to me. After the wedding, when the photos came back, parents-in-law looked pissed in all of them. Husband and I discussed them after the wedding, and he told me, yeah, when they visited they kept asking me things like if I was happy. They were acting weird. After the wedding my husband told me that I didn't have to worry about his family, and that he would deal with it. For him this means a strained phone call from him to them about once a month, where he's mostly stressing to them that he's doing well. For 6 years I basically never thought of them, and we've just been enjoying ourselves, but I can't deny that it's brought this shit back up, and now I am pissed, lol. I have discussed this at length with my husband over the last few weeks, but he insists that he loves his life with me and the city he lives in now way more than the life he used to have before he met me, and that he gives zero fucks about what his parents think. He's considering calling them to tell them to fuck off, but he's not even sure if he wants to talk to them if they don't approve of his family. I have told him it's up to him what kind of relationship he wants to have with these people, and I support him in anything he wants to do. But I'll very likely never have any sort of relationship with his parents again. Feel the need to stress as well. I've never done anything wrong in our relationship. Never cheated, never kept any big secrets, never abused him or anyone. This is the biggest relationship drama we've had in years. Comments. Commenter 1. What was the purpose of his uncle telling you this? Stirring up trouble? Hurting your feelings? I just don't get it. If you were planning to care for them in their old age or planning to move closer to them, then I could see it would be a warning. But you don't mention anything at all like that. Commenter 2. And where was your husband while your uncle was saying these things? Reply. Husband was talking to other people who also live in the household, not guests for the first half of it, and then joined us for the second half. The uncle took me to a part of his house where nobody was around, and when he started telling me this stuff, I texted my husband and told him my location, and he joined me after like 20 minutes. A few days later he did call his uncle because he had more questions and didn't get all of the info firsthand, and the uncle verified this information again, to him. I'm not 100% sure why he told me, but I do know that the uncle has been arguing with my father-in-law over decisions that he has made in other parts of his life. I think he probably told me to start shit on purpose. TBH.edit. I feel the need to stress too. My husband doesn't want to move back home. They have pretty good savings, so they'll prob end up in a home if it comes down to it. Commenter 3 reading into it and making assumptions, so I might be totally off base, but I think maybe another boomer side apology. Look, I'm so not a bad guy. I stopped this catastrophic thing from happening at your wedding. Making them come to him to reveal this information, for me, plays into the theatrics of it. Who knows if it's even true? What if they left intending to skip the ceremony as a form of protest, but timed the whole thing poorly and showed up just before the ceremony instead? The fact this is coming years later, and was a big production of having them come to him for this info, makes me suspect it's a twist of the truth. Unc was definitely on the parents' side during the wedding, but probably sees which side is the losing party now. Commenter 4 Hi. I can relate. My husband's mom started crying when we told her we're engaged, and not in a nice way. She then proceeded to not RSVP to our reception. We eloped months before and she was there, but all photos show her pissed and reluctantly showed up. Didn't give a speech, and then again looked furious in all of the photos. We got pregnant right after, and she made it about herself. Still hasn't met our 28-month-old daughter. We are now no contact, and it's the best it's been. We've been together for 9 years, and she treated me like shit for so long for literally no reason. But both us and my BL and Sil are no contact with that narcissist, and it's been so healing for all of us. I wish you luck, and if you ever need anyone to talk to, feel free to reach out. I can sympathize and understand completely. Reply: thank you, and I'm sorry to hear you had to go through all of that. Stories number 14. My wife and son had dinner out multiple times, telling me while I cooked at home, and she thinks it's funny. Wife 56F and I 63M have 3 kids in high school and college, still living at home. A couple of years ago I developed type 2 diabetes. So in an effort to eat better and save money, I started doing all of the grocery shopping and cooking for the family, and in return my wife does the dishes. I do a lot of stuff from scratch. It's a lot of work. Everyone says I'm a good cook, and they tell me they like my food. My kids are all picky about food in different ways, so I struggle to come up with dishes everyone likes. Last week my wife says she and my son want to take us out to dinner for a special treat. The place is a secret. Sounds like fun. Last night is the big night. She drives us to a local food truck that does lobster rolls. We've been there before, great place. But for the last month, to help my worsening diabetes, I've tried to cut starches out of my diet. Just for myself, not for anyone else. My wife knows this. The food truck is 90% sandwiches on big bread rolls. Okay, so I have the soup, everyone else gets a lobster roll, and she orders tater tots for the table on top of it all. When we sit down, she finally lets us in on the reason we're here. When my son was learning to drive several months back, she would take him out driving after work, before dinner. Turns out they would learn where the food truck was that night, drive there, eat a lobster roll which cost like $20 each, and then come home and pick at the dinner that I had cooked. They did this multiple times. My wife thought that I would be amused. I was not. I told her she should have told me they were eating out so I didn't have to cook for them. She says I was cooking for everyone else, so what's the difference? I remind her that I struggle with making meals everyone likes, and I could have made different things, or even taken the other kids out myself on those nights. She didn't say anything after that, and now she's avoiding me because she knows I'm upset. She hasn't apologized. The thing is, she never offers to cook. She doesn't help with meal planning. She never helps with the groceries. She will often come home late from work without telling me she'll be late. And in general, she doesn't seem to care at all about how hard I work to feed everyone, or about how I need to control my diet. I've let her know how I feel many times, and it hasn't made a bit of difference. Honestly, this lobster roll thing felt like the last straw. I'm ready to give up on cooking for the family, and start cooking just for myself. Am I overreacting? Comments. Commenter. 1. A couple of years ago I developed type 2 diabetes. So in an effort to eat better and save money, I started doing all of the grocery shopping and cooking for the family, and in return, my wife does the dishes. Info. Who cooked or how was dinner procured for the family before 2023? Reply. For most of the marriage, I have done most of the cooking, but it was usually lower effort cooking, a lot of pasta, pre-prepared frozen stuff, etc. Several years ago when the kids were younger, she dropped to part-time, nominally so that she could do more around the house, and she took over most of the cooking. Mostly still low-effort stuff. She went back to full-time shortly before I took over all the cooking. I have worked full-time our entire marriage. Commenter. 2. How many times is multiple times? Is multiple times 2 or 3 times over a 4-month period? Or is it 20 times? Reply. Multiple times for what specifically? How many times I've told her how I feel or how often did they go out for lobster roll? A few times a year for the former, 4 or 5 times for the latter, I think. Commenter. 3. Wowzer. So much going on here. First, I totally get your frustration. I cook almost every meal for my family. I have a 5-year-old who is a picky eater, a toddler, with 10+ food allergies including an extreme reaction to eggs, and my husband is celiac. My toddler's allergic to sorghum common GF substitute but not wheat. So my cooking life is ridiculous too. My husband works crazy hours so this works for us. Your wife obviously wouldn't understand the hassle if she doesn't cook or grocery shop, so I'm not surprised she doesn't get it. But honestly, that's on you for taking on all the cooking. She's a grown woman who should participate in the home cooking as well. Unless she's the breadwinner. I get that it feels really hurtful. It's a lot of money. It feels like all your efforts went unappreciated. They didn't offer to bring anything home for anyone else. But on the other hand, you had extra food that you and the other kids can eat, so it shouldn't be that offensive. It sounds like your wife and son made some really happy core memories while handling a very necessary step in his becoming an adult, and you should be grateful that she was able to make it special for him. Don't bring everyone else down because you don't get to have a lobster roll. Overall, I'd tell your wife she needs to take on more of the family meals, and you need to stop doing more than your fair share. Reply. Not having the lobster roll isn't what bugged me. If she told me ahead of time that she was going to eat out with our son, so don't bother cooking, I would have been fine with it. If it had happened only once on the spur of the moment, I would have been fine with it. But she did it multiple times and never said a word while it was happening. Stories. Number 15. Ex-girlfriend attempted suicide. Died for a couple of minutes. I brought her back with CPR, then she filed a TRO against me. I defended myself in court and won without a lawyer. I'm a 30-year guy from Mexico. Lived in Atlanta for a while, opened a small Brazilian bar. I speak Portuguese. Most of my friends are Brazilian. Met this girl from Portugal. We started dating. Few months in, she fights with her roommate when the lease ended. She had nowhere to go, so I let her move in with me. I was living alone with my dog in a 3-bedroom. Later her family came from Portugal, and I even let them stay too. Things were good. We even started a cleaning company that was doing really well. We rented a bigger place together. She was great. Except sometimes drank too much. Lease was under my name since I had the papers. Day we moved in, we had a dumb fight. Don't even remember why. Fights kept happening, so eventually we agreed to break up but keep the business 50-50 and live together until lease ended. One night her mom knocked on my door saying my ex was acting weird. I checked. She was just drunk and half asleep. We even joked a little and I told her mom to let her rest. Next day around 8 p.m. I hear her weakly calling my name. I go to her room, she's vomiting. I thought hangover. But when she looked at me, she was pale, lips blue, barely talking. She pointed at the bed. Half-empty bottle of Tylenol night and pills scattered. She had OD'd. I called 911, checked her pulse. While on the phone she stopped breathing. Pure panic. I started CPR. Paramedics showed up, took her away. She survived, but spent 10 days in the hospital and 10 more in a psych hospital. Got diagnosed bipolar. During that time she didn't want me to leave her side. After she came home she even slept in my room again because she didn't want to be alone. For like a week things felt normal. Then chaos again. What really messed me up though was what happened that night. Watching her literally die in my arms messed with my head. After she got out of the hospital, I couldn't eat. Dropped almost 15 kilo at to $30 lbs because I just never felt hungry. couldn't sleep more than 2 hours a night. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see her face turning blue. Later I realized it was PTSD, but at the time I just thought I was falling apart. She started seeing someone else almost immediately. Whatever. We were done. But one day she barges into my room telling me she's renting my room and I need to move out. I laughed and kicked her out of my room. Lease had all our names anyway. A week later, I'm eating breakfast. 6 sheriffs bang on the door with guns out. She had filed a TRO against me, saying I threatened and hit her. They escorted me out with only my dog. No wallet, no cash, no clothes. For 2 weeks until court, I lived in my Camaro with my dog. Showered at the gym, used quick-trip bathrooms. Tried to get pro bono help, but nobody took it. One night cops woke me up after someone reported me. I explained my situation, and one of them was like, "Wait, do you live in that house with the X cars outside?" Turns out they were the same cops from the night I did CPR. They couldn't believe it. Gave me the report number, their names, said they'd testify if needed. Court day came. She had her family, 3 friends, and a lawyer. I had just me, LOL. I was nervous as hell, thought I was screwed. But in the end, the judge didn't believe a word of her lies. Judge even warned her not to use the court system for revenge again, or she could face charges. I walked out relieved. But when I got back home, my room was emptied. Cash, cards, passport, visa, gone. My flight back to Mexico was in a couple days anyway, so I ended the lease, paid the penalty, donated my stuff, left my car outside, and went back to Mexico. What a nightmare. Comments. Commenter. 1. Everything was fine except she sometimes drank. Too much red flag. 1. Either they address it or it escalates. Sorry you learned that in a real hard way. Hope things are going better for you now. Reply. Totally agree. Trying to play superhero and save everyone isn't for me anymore. My little adventure of starting a business in the US is over, but I gained a lot of experience from it. Right now I'm finishing my master's in software development and things and are going great here in Mexico. Thanks for reading. Stories number 16 Aita for refusing to reconcile with my half-sister like the rest of my family. Let me start you guys off with the background so this will make sense. My dad was married to another woman before my mom. For the sake of the post, I'll call this woman Betty. Dad and Betty had my half-sister Jana, now 26F. When Jana was 8 months, old Betty was arrested for driving under the influence of drugs. My dad left Betty, filed for divorce and full custody. My dad was given temporary full custody, and when Betty went to court, she was given a stint in rehab instead of jail. When she finished her time in rehab, she re-established contact with Jana. She started with supervised visits and went up to every other weekend visits. Then my parents met when Jana was 2.5, and they got engaged after dating for 2 years. Jana saw Betty less frequently during the period where my parents dated. Once they were engaged, Betty was back, and she was nasty to my parents, but especially to my mom. When Jana was 6, Betty lost custody and visitation again. Betty was arrested like 2 or 3 times, and she was in jail for a while. She got out around the time I-19M was born. There was a whole lot of trouble that started after that. I don't remember the super early stuff, but I remember being 5'7" and windows being busted in, alarms being set off, and a deranged woman screaming at us. We moved like 3 or 4 times, and we even moved towns to escape it. The police were a regular at our house. Then Betty got arrested and sentenced to more time in prison, and she was gone for a few years. Then when Jana was 16 and I was 9, Betty was released, and Jana got in touch with her. We didn't know that at the time until Jana let Betty into our house when everyone else was asleep, and we all woke up to Betty losing her shit. She smashed some stuff and stole others and fled before the cops got there. Jana didn't try to hide her part in it either, but then she accused my mom of abusing her and Dad of knowing. She said that was why her mom was so insane, and that she was never really on drugs. We were all temporarily removed from my parents while that was being investigated. It was like 2 months of separation. Then me and my siblings were returned to them, but Jana wasn't, and she didn't want to be. My siblings remember none of it. They were too young at the time. A few weeks ago my dad got back in touch with Jana, and now everyone else is going to meet with her and start reconciling with her. Pressure is being put on me to do the same, but I don't want to. Not only am I not willing to overlook what she did before, but there are red flags now that they're ignoring. She has not talked to my mom once since contact resumed, and when I asked Dad if he tried to get them talking, he admitted yes, and Jana was against it. She has never apologized for any of her actions, which Dad also admits. According to my paternal grandparents, Jana still has a relationship with Betty, and visited her in prison when she was in, and still speaks to her now that she's out again. My siblings are excited because they don't really know any better, and everyone else is overlooking all the warning signs, and they're angry I'm not going along with it. Maybe I'm just broken, but this isn't something I've been secretly hoping for, and for me, I don't think I'll ever be at a point where I would want her in my life, changed person or not. Comments, commenter. KNTA. No one can blame you for feeling like this. You can only try to distance yourself and watch the inevitable events unfold. Commenter 2. Get clear, move out, move far. Refuse to be dragged back into this mess. You almost lost your family because of Jana's selfish and reckless actions. False accusations make it harder for genuine victims to be believed. She didn't care if you or you siblings got abused or assaulted in foster care. She didn't care about the trauma she inflicted. Your father failed you all. It was his job to protect you from Jana, as much as it was his job to get Jana into therapy and setting reasonable boundaries. Be clear with your siblings. Jana made up the most fucked up accusations possible to get what she wanted. That siblings may be her new targets. That your priority is protecting yourself as no one else seems to be. NTA commenter. 3. Usually people who show zero or remorse to deeply evil transgressions like getting you put into a foster home by Child Protective Services due to lies are bad people. I think you're right to trust your gut instinct. She doesn't sound like she has accepted that she committed a horrific crime against you. Stories number 17. Roommate couple left a please clean note after I stopped being their live-in maid. I'm done. I need some perspective and advice on how to handle my roommates. For the first year we lived together, I did all the cooking, cleaning, and household management. Every single bit of it. I finally got burned out, and about 5 months ago, I completely stopped. I only clean up after myself. As you can guess, the common areas have become a disaster. They've started leaving passive-aggressive notes telling me to clean specific messes they made. In the past, I usually just did it to avoid conflict. But I'm done. The latest note, left on the fridge next to a mess they made, just says, "Please clean." The please is new. It feels like a manipulation tactic because their previous ruder notes stopped working on me. I did not clean it. I am leaving it there. I am preparing for the argument that is definitely coming. How would you handle this? How do I finally get it through to them that I am not their housekeeper and we need a fair system? Did all chores for a year for my roommate couple. Stopped 5 months ago. They now leave notes demanding I clean. The latest one said, "Please clean." I'm refusing and ready for a fight. Edit, cleaning kitchen. Broom and mop whole house plus garbage, fridge, key is on the fridge. Please note that. She left. Second edit. Hi everyone, OP here. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to every single person who commented, upvoted, and shared their stories and advice. I was feeling completely defeated, and your support and tough love gave me the push I needed to finally speak up. I read every comment, and I'm so grateful for this community. Here's what happened. I took the collective advice and finally talked to my roommates. It was direct, but I stayed calm and used a lot of the scripts you all provided. The immediate result: they actually listened. They cleaned up the mess from the note today, and we've agreed to sit down next week on our mutual day off to create a formal chore schedule and system. This is a huge first step. I know it's just the beginning and the real test will be if they stick to it, but it's progress I didn't have before I posted here. Your messages did more than just give me advice. They made me feel justified and far less alone in this. From the people who told me to stop being a doormat to those who shared their own identical stories. It all helped more than you know. I'll try to update again after we have our meeting and see if the new system holds. Thanks again everyone, you guys are the best. Comments. Commenter 1. How would you handle this? How do I finally get it through to them that I am not their housekeeper and we need a fair system? Start with, "You made the mess. It is your job to clean up after yourself." Commenter 2. When y'all finally speak face to face, repeat their expectations back to them. "So you expect me to please clean your dishes every night? You expect me to please clean the common area that we all use? Am I getting that right?" Commenter 3. Have there been any conversations about this between you and the roommates? Reply, that's a fair question. There haven't been any formal, sit-down conversations, which is part of the problem. The conversations have been mostly one-sided, them leaving these notes, and me, in the past, just cleaning the mess to avoid conflict. My stepping back for the last 5 months was itself a nonverbal message to see if they would step up. They didn't. The deterioration of the house and this latest note are the proof that it didn't work. This note is the catalyst. I'm done with the passive-aggressive notes, and I'm now forcing the direct conversation. I'm planning to talk to them. Tonight. Commenter 4. If you're going to be the housemaid, then charge for it. $200 a month per person, plus bonus charges for excessive cleaning like vomit on the rug or something. Stories number 18. Lifeguard won't let me back into the beach because my daughter didn't have a top. 1.5 weeks ago, my kid's 2-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son went hiking. We followed a path that went very deep into a forest, and we came across a little beach type of place. It's really small, and there were maybe 10 people there. From 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. there is a lifeguard, although he labels himself as security there, since it belongs to the city's regional parks, and otherwise it is unsupervised. Obviously, we had just come from hiking, and I didn't have the kids' swimsuits, so when they asked me if they could go into the water, I said that I'd see. When we got closer and I saw that it didn't go deeper than my 2-year-old stomach for a good 6 meters, I told myself I'd pull up my pants and go 2-3 meters in and watch the kids from there. So I agreed to let them in and told them to remove their shirts and pants, to only keep their undies, and to jump in, which they gladly did. They were playing in the water for about 3 minutes when the lifeguard comes by and asks me if my daughter has a top. I told him quickly that this wasn't planned, that her swimsuit does have a top, but that I didn't have it with me. He replied something about it not being a nudist or topless beach, and that she needed a top, so that maybe I could put her shirt on. I wasn't entirely sure that he was kidding or not. I mean, he was really young looking, 16, 18, and he was dressed with baggy shorts and a long t-shirt, definitely not ready to jump in the water if someone drowns, and I don't know. I thought it might have been a joke. So I asked him, "Really?" He said, "Yes, really." So I got worked up and told him, "What does my daughter's chest have that my son doesn't?" So he said, "Well, women have breasts." To which I replied, "Yes, women do, once they reach puberty. Right now she's just a little girl with nipples. Everyone has nipples, boy or girl." He looked at me and just said, "Okay, she cannot stay in the beach like that." At that point I was really pissed, probably to the point where I couldn't even watch them properly in the water. So I told them that we're going to get going. After a bit of, "But mommy, I want to play," we got dressed and going. I didn't go back for a while, since there is also another beach nearby but further and much busier. But then we went hiking yesterday, and the kids asked if we could stop by the beach. I mean, this time around I decided to plan ahead and to bring their swimwear, both have shorts and a t-shirt, surf style, as well as mine. We got there, the kids had their swimwear on already, and they just took off their shoes and socks and jumped into the beach. I was taking off my dress when the same lifeguard came by. He said that he had spoken to his manager and that we weren't allowed on the beach, that they take child pornography very seriously. Again, I thought he was kidding. Like, seriously, what the hell? So I told him, "You better be kidding." And he says, "Please don't make me call for backup." Now there were like 5 people at the beach. They were all staring, and even the kids weren't even in the water and just wondering why mommy was getting upset. My 3-year-old even asked, "Mommy, do we have to go again?" And it just made me feel really upset. And I asked him in a calming voice, "Can I please have the number of your manager and his name?" He said he didn't have it on him, and I told him that I'd go ahead and wait while he called him. So I got undressed and went into the water to watch the kids. What he ended up doing was to call the other security people, 3 who are also 16 to 18 looking, obviously summer jobs, and they told me that I had to leave, or that they would have to escort me out of the park. My kiddos didn't need that type of stress. I didn't want to argue, so I politely asked for the manager's number again, and one of the guys said, "I am the manager, and I just asked you to leave." So we got dressed, and we left. Today, 24 hours later, I am definitely upset. We are in July. It's nice outside. That beach is at 25 minutes from outhouse. It's not busy, and yet, I cannot go there for really stupid reasons. I feel like I cannot reason with them, and except writing to the newspaper or some type of media, I have no other idea what to do. My husband says to just go there after 2 p.m., and we have gone as a family later at night where no one is around, but I think it's completely unfair that we just can't go whenever we please. Has anyone been in this situation that could offer any advice? Should I just let it go and go to the other beach that is 60 minutes away, or try to reason with someone? I obviously don't think I've done anything wrong that got me and the kids banned. I just feel like I pissed off the lifeguard, and that he's just getting back at me. Relevant comments. Commenter: 1. I'd call the beach and ask to speak to the manager, and if you get the 16-year-old kid, move up the chain. I'm sure that an 18-year-old is not in charge of the beach. Reply: that's what I think too. I mean, at a certain point there has to be someone else. It's a beach that is inside of a national park. If I look on their website, there is no contact information, so are they hired by the city? I've been going there for a long time now and never ever came across lifeguards and security. But I've also never had found that beach. Commenter 2. Start by calling the National Park Information Line and ask to be put in touch with whoever's responsible for their lifeguards or beaches. Edit 1. Kids are napping, and I decided to contact the city's council since I really can't find the number of the park's direction. I'm on hold. Edit 2. Okay, I called. I got transferred to this sweet lady who took my call very seriously and who was super professional about it. She was in total disbelief and just couldn't believe that they would have asked a mom and her 2 kids to leave because of that. She asked me over and over if I had any alcohol with me, if my daughter was 20, not 2, and if I was topless myself. She also kept apologizing and said, "I'm so sorry, this is just crazy. I don't see why it wouldn't be allowed, and I don't see why you'd lie." She put me on hold for a good 10 minutes, and when she came back she apologized for what had happened. She says that if everything did indeed happen like I say it did, they obviously want to question the security guards about it, that there was absolutely no reason for me to leave. She said that the security guards are actually volunteers who are required by school to volunteer, and that they don't actually have any power of asking people to leave or to dress up, so that if I wanted to, I could just go back and give them their number, the city's number, or to contact the local police and ask them to send an officer over non-urgently and not to be bothered by them. She gave me the case number too in case I need it, and she promised that she'd call me back to update me after they get a hold of the lifeguards and tell me what was going to happen. She ended the conversation by saying that she was a grandmother of a 4-year-old who goes to beach topless and never thought of it as offensive. You guys are great, by the way. However, I do wish to say that I don't plan on hurting, harming, fighting, yelling, and doing any other type of damage to anyone, especially not teenagers. I also don't really plan on suing them or harass them. So while your advice is really appreciated, those are things I just will not do. Update: the lady called back about an hour ago. We actually spoke for a while. She started by saying how the whole team who worked with her got really upset and concerned about the whole story. She said that there are not a lot of young couples and families in the city, and that they've really been trying to attract younger families, and to hear something like that happening is just counterproductive. So she apologized again and said they did some quick investigation and found some quite interesting things. Happens that one of her colleagues has a teenager son who knows these guys who went to volunteer at the national park. They go to high school together, and as part of a class, they have to complete 24 hours of volunteer work. Apparently, when the mother questioned her son about their volunteering at the beach, he said, "They don't really volunteer there. They mostly host parties and call it volunteering. Most of 10th graders meet there to drink and smoke." Apparently, he had just not told him mom because he didn't think they were harming anyone. And I mean, let's not forget it. The kid is 16. I probably wouldn't have called them out either. I would think it's just something silly. So they sent 2 people who works for the town to check it out at around 1:30 p.m. yesterday, and what they saw was crazy. Apparently there was about 15 teenagers there, all drinking, some smoking, some topless, who apparently said they were tanning, and lots of free dogs which isn't allowed on the whole site. She even added that there was a guy who refused to come out of the water with his girlfriend because they were both naked. It must have been a mess. The lady was telling me that on the phone and I was laughing and she was like, "Yeah, we laughed too. No shit, they didn't want us there." It was their private little beach of drinking, smoking, and fucking, and like I was super curious and almost got to be friends with the lady, I asked her, "Okay, what did the 2 people do?" "Well, there is only one way to get into the beach, by a little trail after a hike, and there is only one way out, by the famous little trail." So the 2 town workers sat on the trail, blocking the way, and called the cops. The cops came with alcohol tests, asked to see IDs, called parents to come and get their kids at the park's entrance, and apparently gave them tickets for being underage and drinking. The lady also said they are in process of contacting the school to let them know how their volunteering experience worked out and how they were not dedicated to their lifeguard activities. Well, that explains a lot. They just didn't want us around, and since they have time to see us coming before we get to see them, they probably also had time to hide booze and get dressed. Although maybe it was still too early for them when we went 10-ish, 11-ish. The lady reassured me that they were going to request these volunteers to give me an apology, and that today there is already a new volunteer that she has been told about. Me and the kiddos, and that she cannot wait to meet us. I honestly couldn't be happier. I'm actually typing this and then getting ready to go since it's such a nice day here today. TLDR. Teenagers were hosting a private beach with lots of illegal things, so they didn't want us around and found excuses to kick us out. I'm really happy at how the city workers handled the whole deal. Edit. We went to the beach. The new volunteer is a really sweet teenager named Jessica. She happens to want to be a veterinarian and spent the whole time watching the kids with me and talking about pets. Final comments. Commenter 1. That's hilarious. Reply. It really is. I'm not even mad or upset anymore. I just find the whole thing absurd. These kids will probably think about this 10 years from now and be like, "Wow, we were really dumb." I'm kind of reassured they actually didn't care about my kid being topless and were just trying their best to cover their butts. Commenter 2. I read this first and thought you were a bit of a dick for ruining the teenage kid's secret party place. I went back and read part 1. And I don't blame you at all. What a bunch of idiots. They could have come up with a much better story than going down the pedophile path. I'm sure if they'd leveled with you and said it gets a bit messy down there, and you might want to keep the kids away, you'd have been a lot more amenable. Reply, that's what my husband said when I called him to tell him. He was like, had they told you, "Hey miss, we drink here sometimes and it gets a little crazy. I can try to keep it under control, but I'm just a teenager who is a volunteer," you would have probably been like, "Oh, okay, I'll come in the afternoon." He's totally right. Stories number 19 AITA for canceling a visit with my mom after she put being a landlord first. Situation is a bit complex emotionally, but maybe not legally. 1 to 2 years ago, I have moved to a new city and began renting an apartment from my mom and her husband. They own a couple of units in a semi-popular city. They charged me market rent, or slightly above market rent. It was not cheap. We signed a lease, whatever. After a year, it went to month to month. They were typical landlords to us in the sense that they ignored us half of the time, but we always paid rent on time, were good neighbors to the other tenants, etc. Additionally, I had helped them with their business multiple times for free, offering services that would probably have totaled up to 1K, 1.5K, plus helping them out with like house sitting, pet sitting, airport rides, etc. Things normal family members should do for one another. I got a job offer in another state, so we formally ended the lease and began to move out. A major complication during this is that my dog, originally my mom's, but the dog picked me as her person, went into congestive heart failure. This took an overwhelming toll on my mental health and financials. The dog is stable-ish now. My mom knows about this and how distraught I've been, and when moving I told her I'm going to need my entire as much as I can get deposit back to help with the bills from the dog and move. She agreed so long as the apartment was clean, which is fair. My partner and I, with the help of a friend, deep cleaned the apartment, aside from the walls, which she told me not to worry about since she's going to repaint them regardless. She saw the apartment and agreed it was good to go and we're all settled. The issue came when they sent our deposit back and she went back on her word. They took $500 for cleaning and painting fees, even when they assured us they were not going to do that. When I asked her why, she accused me of not deep cleaning the house. I requested photos of what was needed to be clean, which she refused to provide, and why she still charged us for painting when she said not to worry about it. At first, she said those conversations never happened, and when I sent proof of those conversations, her argument shifted to, "You're lucky we didn't change you more. You should be grateful it was only $500. She knows we needed that money for an upcoming surgery for my dog left atrial decompression, and I was in total shock. She was supposed to come visit us in our new apartment in mid-September, but I ended up canceling the visit. She's always been kind of selfish and never there for me, but even this surprised me. She knows the depths of how hard we're struggling and still took the money when they're plenty wealthy. $500 is a lot of money, but it feels more than just the money for me. She went back on her word and put being a greedy landlord first over being my mom. Aita for canceling the visit over this? Comments. Commenter 1 NTA, and you should contact your local housing authority. Paint is generally considered wear and tear. She needs proof and an itemized list in most jurisdictions. Reply, I can't emotionally speak to her right now, so I think I'll have my partner ask for evidence and an itemized list. It is ridiculous. Commenter 21 NTA. As you said, your own mother put being a landlord first. My recommendation is, get an itemized invoice, which they legally have to provide, and quotes, because even if she did pay to have it deep clean and repainted, it wouldn't have cost that much. Also save the conversations where you talked about this in writing, since they do hold weight, to an extent legally speaking. Commenter 3 NTA. From your description, this sounds like the behavior would be wrong from any landlord. Never mind about the landlord in question being your own mother. Maybe she thought that since she's your mother, you'd be less likely than a typical tenant to fight back, get legal advice, etc. I suppose you probably don't have the money and bandwidth for this, but I think it would be awesome if you proved her wrong on that assumption. Reply, there's a lot of compounding factors in the situation, but I don't think I have the emotional or financial bandwidth to fight back here. The local government is still recovering from Helene, so options are super limited. Stories. Number 20, my husband got upset that I read and used my phone instead of cooking and cleaning. Hi everyone, I've been reading here for a long time but never thought I'd make a post. Honestly, I'm feeling confused and a little guilty, so I want to share what happened and get some perspective. I'm Amanda, 28F, and my husband is Ryan, 31M. We've been married for 3 years, together for about 6. We don't have kids yet, but we do have a 3-year-old golden retriever named Bailey, who is basically our child right now. Both Ryan and I work from home. The difference is our jobs couldn't be more opposite in terms of workload. Ryan works as a software engineer for a major tech company. His schedule is brutal, about 10 hours a day, sometimes even more if deadlines are approaching. His meetings are non-stop, his brain is constantly switched on, and by the end of the day, he's exhausted. My job is way more relaxed. I work as a marketing associate for a mid-sized firm. I usually clock in around 9, log out around 4 or 5, but most of my day is spent waiting for tasks or responding to emails. If I'm honest, on some days I might work 3 to 4 hours of actual focused time. I still need to be online and available, but I have a lot of downtime. Yesterday, things came to a head. Around late morning, I was on a quick bathroom break and decided to take my book, a Colleen Hoover novel if anyone's wondering, with me. I got back to my desk and was reading a few more pages when Ryan suddenly came in to grab something from the office closet. He saw me with my feet up holding my book, and I could immediately tell from his face he wasn't thrilled. He didn't say much then, just raised an eyebrow and left, but I felt the tension. Later that afternoon, I was scrolling through TikTok between emails, and Ryan came in again. This time he sighed and said, Amanda, seriously? What gives? You're just reading and watching videos while I'm drowning in work. I tried to explain. I told him my job just isn't as intense, and I can take breaks when things are slow. I even said, "It's not like I can just clock out to clean the kitchen or cook for us. My boss might ping me any second. I still need to be here." But Ryan got frustrated. He said something like, "Yeah, but if you've got this much free time, why not use it for something productive? Cook us a proper meal or keep up with the housework. You know I literally don't have the bandwidth." That sparked an argument that lasted all night. He accused me of being inconsiderate, of wasting time while he's stressed out, and not being a team player in our marriage. I told him it wasn't fair to expect me to fill my downtime with chores just because his job is harder. I reminded him that I do contribute. I walk Bailey every morning, I clean up the kitchen after dinner most nights, I do laundry on weekends, and I help with grocery shopping. But apparently because I wasn't spending my spare work hours doing housework, it wasn't enough. At one point he said, "Amanda, I'm not asking you to scrub the floors every day, but imagine how nice it would be if I didn't have to come out of a 12-hour workday to then worry about what we're eating for dinner." That stung because, truthfully, we've always had an each cooks for themselves kind of rhythm during the week. Whoever has time makes food. Sometimes I make enough for both, sometimes he does. On weekends, we usually cook together. It's never been this gender role traditional thing where I'm expected to serve him. By the time we went to bed, I was upset. I felt like Ryan didn't respect how different our jobs are and was basically punishing me for not being as overworked as he is. I also worried he was starting to see me as lazy. I barely slept because I kept asking myself, am I really being selfish? Should I be doing more around the house since my job is easier? Or is Ryan being unfair expecting me to use all my downtime for productive things just because his job is stressful? Update, next day. First off, thank you to everyone who commented and gave me perspective. Reading your thoughts helped me calm down before I confronted Ryan. But before I even got the chance to bring it up, Ryan surprised me. That evening, he came into the living room looking sheepish and said, "Amanda, I'm sorry. I was stressed yesterday and I took it out on you. It wasn't fair. You're allowed to have downtime. Just because I don't doesn't mean you shouldn't." He then offered to cook me dinner, my favorite shrimp pasta, and he even poured me a glass of wine. I was honestly shocked because Ryan isn't usually one to apologize first. I told him I appreciated his apology and admitted that I'd been planning to show him some of the Reddit comments because I felt so misunderstood. He laughed and said, "God, don't let Reddit roast me, I couldn't take it." We had a good talk over dinner. I told him I understood how stressed he's been, but that I can't be expected to give up all my relaxation time just because his job is tougher. I reminded him that we're partners, and while I'll always help where I can, he needs to respect that I still have a job too, even if it's easier. We ended up agreeing on a small compromise. I'd help him with evening walks for Bailey, so he has a little more free time after work, and I'd try to make dinner a couple nights a week when my workload is light. But I made it clear that this doesn't mean I'm turning into his personal housekeeper. Since then, things have been good. He's been more appreciative, less snappy, and we've both been more mindful of each other's stress levels. TL. Dear husband, 31M, was upset that while he works a grueling 10-hour job from home, I, 28F, sometimes read or scroll TikTok during my much lighter work hours instead of cleaning or cooking. We fought, but he later apologized and cooked me dinner. We agreed on small compromises, but also set boundaries so I'm not treated like a maid just because my job is easier. Second update, 3 months later. Hi again, everyone, it's Amanda. I didn't expect to be back with another update, but life has a funny way of testing boundaries. So, after my first post and Ryan's apology, things were genuinely better for a while. He was kinder, less snappy, and I felt like he understood that I deserved downtime even if my job wasn't as intense. I kept up my end of the small compromises we made. I walked Bailey with him in the evenings. I made dinner a few nights a week, and I tried to be more proactive around the house on days when my workload was extra light. And honestly, for the first few weeks, it was great. We felt like a team again. But then Ryan hit another brutal cycle at work. His team lost a developer, so he was covering extra hours. Suddenly, his 10-hour days turned into 12-hour days. He was eating at his desk, skipping workouts, and getting very little sleep. I could see the stress eating him alive, and old habits crept back in. About a month ago, Ryan came out of his office after a long day and saw me reading on the couch, with Bailey curled up next to me. He sighed loudly and said, "It must be nice to relax all day." That hurt. I reminded him I'd already finished laundry and cleaned the kitchen that morning, but he brushed it off and muttered something about how he wished he had the luxury of free time. It felt like déjà vu. Instead of letting it blow up into another fight, I decided to wait until the weekend to bring it up calmly. On Saturday, I sat him down and told him, "Ryan, I can see you're stressed, but I'm not going to keep defending myself for having a different kind of job. I help out, I compromise, I've picked up more around the house, but I won't accept being guilt-tripped every time I pick up a book or scroll my phone." He was quiet for a while, then admitted he was jealous. He said, "It just feels unfair. I kill myself for work, and you have all this free time. I know it's not your fault, but it makes me resentful." That was honestly hard to hear. I told him, "Ryan, if that's how you feel, then we need to talk bigger picture, because I can't change the nature of my job, and I won't punish myself just because yours is harder." We ended up having a really deep conversation. Ryan opened up that he sometimes feels trapped in his career. He makes good money, but the workload is crushing him. Seeing me with more freedom makes him feel like he's missing out on life. It's not really about me not cleaning or cooking. It's about him being unhappy with his situation. That conversation was a turning point. Since then, we've been working on healthier ways for Ryan to cope with stress. He started seeing a therapist once a week. He also finally told his manager he's burned out, and while nothing has changed yet, workload-wise, I think just admitting it was a relief for him. And for us as a couple? We made some new rules. Ryan promised not to make comments about how I spend my downtime. I promised to check in with him more proactively if I see he's drowning, and offer help, like cooking dinner, without him having to ask. We also agreed to set aside real quality time on weekends. No work, no phones. Just us, Bailey, and something fun. It hasn't been perfect, but things feel better than they did. Last weekend we actually went hiking for the first time in months, and Ryan said he felt like he could finally breathe again. That made me hopeful. I know this might sound small to some people, but marriage is such a balance of compromise and boundaries. I don't want to feel like his maid, but I also don't want him to feel like I'm leaving him behind in his stress. It's been a learning curve for both of us. TLDR, second update. Things got better after the first update, but when Ryan's workload increased again, old resentment started creeping back. We had a serious conversation where he admitted it's less about me and more about his own burnout. He's now in therapy, setting some boundaries at work, and we've made new rules to protect both his sanity and my right to have downtime. Marriage is still a work in progress, but we're trying. Final update, 9 months after original post. Hey everyone, it's Amanda again. I never thought this little post about me reading a book would turn into such a long journey. But here we are. So, after my last update, Ryan had started therapy and was making some progress with setting boundaries at work. For a while things were good. We were hiking, cooking together, even laughing again in the evenings instead of just collapsing from stress. I really thought we were on the upswing. But life doesn't always stay neat and tidy. About 3 months after my last update, Ryan's company went through a merger. His workload doubled, and his stress skyrocketed. Despite therapy, despite our rules, despite my effort to step up even more at home, the resentment came back stronger than ever. It wasn't just little sighs anymore. It turned into comments like, "You wouldn't understand, you don't really work as hard as I do. It must be nice to sit around while I break my back for this family. If I had your schedule, the house would always be spotless." At first I tried to brush it off, but eventually I realized this wasn't about the dishes or my phone or the dog walks. This was about Ryan's unhappiness with himself. One night, after he snapped at me for not using my free time productively, when I had literally just spent 2 hours meal prepping for us, I broke down. I told him, "Ryan, I love you, but I am not your punching bag. I won't keep apologizing for having a different kind of job. I won't keep sacrificing my peace because you can't find yours." That conversation was brutal. For the first time I saw Ryan cry. He admitted he felt like a failure because he was miserable at a job he worked so hard to get. He said he took it out on me because I was safe. He knew I wouldn't leave. That shook me. We spent weeks in couples therapy after that. It forced us to put everything on the table. His resentment, my frustration, the imbalance we both felt. And you know what? It helped. A lot. Ryan finally made the decision to leave his job. It was terrifying. The man had been grinding in tech since college, and his whole identity was wrapped up in being the provider. But he found another role at a smaller company. Pay cut, yes. But workload? Way more reasonable. And the difference? Night and day, Ryan is calmer. He actually smiles again. He cooks with me without grumbling. He takes Bailey on morning walks before work. And most importantly, he no longer resents my downtime. In fact, he started picking up hobbies of his own. Photography of all things. The same guy who once mocked me for sitting around reading now spends hours messing with camera settings and editing photos, and it makes me so happy to see. We're not perfect. We still bicker sometimes about chores or stress. But the bitterness? The resentment? It's gone. Therapy gave us tools, but Ryan taking that scary leap and leaving his toxic job was what really saved us. TLDR, final update. After months of resentment cycles, therapy, and a work merger that almost broke us, Ryan realized his unhappiness wasn't about me. It was about his career. He left his toxic job for a less demanding one. And our marriage is stronger than ever. The book versus chores fight feels like a lifetime ago, and we've both grown a lot since then. Stories number 21. Malicious compliance in a factory. I worked in a factory job making display boxes for items that were being assembled on a conveyor belt. After a couple days, I got to where I could make a box pretty darn fast, and I was always done sooner than the ladies working the conveyor belt. So I would step in and give them breaks. It was really hot in the factory, one lady was pregnant and passed out a couple of times, and we had a few older people faint as well. I was young and strong and wanted to help them out by giving them a break. I asked the line boss how many of the items we'd make in a run, so I could do the simple division in my head and figure out how many boxes I needed to make before I could step in to help on the line. She was a petty person who liked to wield the little power she held over the rest of us, so she refused to tell me, saying that it wasn't my job to know, and that my job was just to make boxes. Okay then, that's my job, you say? My only job? Guess I'll just make boxes then. And I did. I made boxes. I made as many as I could, as fast as I could. And I didn't stop until the run was over. We had hundreds of boxes that the whole team had to break, down and stack for reuse later. And the floor manager came over and asked the line boss what the heck was going on. After that, the line boss always grudgingly told me how many items were in the run, and when I finished my work, I would step in and help out on the line to give someone a break. Suck it, line boss. Stories number 22. Need all the equipment back? Fine. This project is all yours too. I was working remotely for a European-based manufacturer of at least my division high-end broadcast processing equipment. They also made other pro equipment, but this area was the highest end and by far the most technically demanding. Very niche-y, very configuration-dependent, etc. Great technical staff and developers in Europe. We had great relationship being a bunch of tech nerds who could talk about IP ranges and capacitor values for hours. The US office just took orders from HQ over there, had some good basic techs, but not set up to do any high-end troubleshooting, which is exactly why I existed. There was an acquisition coming up, and auditors started to be involved. We had to send in inventory of all of our computers and test gear, etc. Fine, whatever. Well, remember that setup-dependent part. I was right in the middle of a huge project with one of the largest US broadcasters, which had already resulted in one of the largest upgrade sales this division had ever made, and was testing some fresh-from-the-sandbox SNMP features. This is pretty old tech that is still being used, so I enlisted an older super micro server I had been barely using for remotely accessing some kit in my workshop, to do some basic SNMP functions to make sure these new features didn't bung anything up before I literally put them in air on 50-plus stations. Things were working fine with tests. I'd get a new revision first thing in the morning, bang on it a bit, send it off to my tech contact by my EOD at the network, which was his morning. Not terribly difficult, but pretty niche-y. And also one reason I worked for this company: no one knew at all what any of this was in North America, so auditors are involved, and the North American office that just takes orders sees this Supermicro server on the inventory list, and it's just the end of the world. Why is there a server out in the field? Why do you need so much test equipment? Who approved this? Etc. My first couple replies were just disregarded because no one knew what I was talking about. A decision was made that this server had to go back. A third insistence from me that this was actively used, and who else would take this over, fell on deaf ears. It was the most important thing in the entire world that they get this server back. It's a junky old Supermicro 1RU utility beast that cost maybe 1K at most. For whatever reason, I was feeling extra snarky the day I should have boxed the server up, so I wrote an extra friendly note to all the techs, the decision makers at the US office, and to my tech contact and his boss at the network, introducing everyone, thanking them for taking over this critical project, and thanking HQ for helping take on this time-sensitive test phase that would really help me get to other critical projects. About 25 minutes later, I sent tracking information for all the kits still didn't box up the server I was supposed to send back. About an hour later, I get a really odd email from the decision makers in the US office. He doesn't want to admit that no one at HQ doesn't know what the hell I was talking about technically, and simultaneously realized this is a huge account that would totally affect their bonuses if another nice sale came through. They were trying to save face and cover for their techs by suggesting maybe I get them up to speed on the project before we do anything drastic. I just replied to his email with the tracking information again, and mentioned I had suggested this. 3x now. 25 minutes later, I get a freaked-out phone call from the head tech at the US HQ. Him and his superior, the decision maker, have got a very nice call from my contact's boss at the network. They were so happy with the service so far. I had a great relationship at this point, and excited that having someone else checking these updates would allow me to be on site more, big future plans, etc. He is wondering who is going to do this work now. Now this comes up? I just repeated that 3x this was brought up now, so clearly this decision was educated. They know best, so now there's full-blown panic at US HQ. Knowing this, I send a note to the developers in Europe to make sure the new updated code goes to the catch-all address for the US HQ tech team, and not me, because they will be doing the testing going forward. This has the desired effect because now the head of development in Europe is on the horn, with the decision maker in US wondering about who they recently hired without approval to be able to have these in-house resources now. By the time that UPS pickup was supposed to have happened, somehow having this old server back was no longer the highest priority. In fact, I never heard about the server again. Stories. Number 23-1. Simple moment shook this man's entire world. View I had a very interesting interaction a few days ago. It kind of amazes me, but in a bad way. This is a long one, sorry. And sorry if any of my word usage breaks any rules. I tried my best not to. Okay, so I was walking toward the entrance of the grocery store, and a guy was walking diagonally across from the exit door to the parking lot. He saw me coming. He could easily move. Plus, if he kept going on that trajectory, he would run into a parked van, so he would have to pivot a bit to get around it. As a woman, or maybe just a person raised with manners, I've always been taught to be the one to move, and I'm guessing most people step out of the way for tall dudes marching around like they own the place. But I remembered years ago a bunch of women talking about a certain type of guy who won't move for you if you're about to collide. He expects you to do it for a number of reasons, and will be shocked when you don't. I decided I wouldn't move because I'd have to move more out of the way than he would, and I'd have to wait for him to go by. Also, I was feeling a little snarky, I guess. I wanted to see what would happen. And the results were far beyond my expectations. The guy sees me and he just keeps walking right toward where I'm headed. He had any moment to turn and walk the normal way into the parking lot, but I was heading straight for the door and didn't have a shorter path. If you've read this far, I bet you can guess what happened next. The guy almost slammed into me. Okay, as I figured. But then he immediately lost his mind. He was like, Watch where you're going. What's wrong with you? All aggressive like. So I was like, you watch where you're going. You could have easily moved out of the way or slowed down. He started shouting things at me that I can't recall, but he kept walking. He called me a dumb baasi as he moved around the freaking truck anyway. I had this strange moment though, the weirdest little spark within me, and I started laughing. I wasn't sure why until it hit me that no one had ever done something like that to that guy. No one female at least. It didn't even occur to him that he might have to be the one to move. The fact that a woman a foot shorter than him refused to scramble out of the way for him was absolutely enraging. It had truly blown his mind that I didn't get out of the way. He was so upset. I really hadn't expected him to have such an unhinged response, but people react strongly to anything that contradicts their deep beliefs about life. And one of his was apparently that everyone must move for him, even if it makes more sense for him to move. I bet he's going to keep thinking about that moment throughout his life, about the hard truth that not everyone is going to inconvenience themselves for him, so that he can keep walking in a straight line. I doubt he'll stop his behavior, of course, but it's insane to see how some people react to a reality check. You're actually not the only one who matters, my man, but it's impressive how easy it is to make you rage out. For the record, I don't advise other people to do the same, since we all know how insecure, butthurt dudes can get violent. But it really was a fascinating moment. I could tell that at first he thought it was an accident, like I really didn't see him. But when I snapped back at him, he realized and started having a tantrum. Later, I started to feel bad, though. Not sorry, just disappointed. There are lots of great men out there, but I wish the touchy, explosive ones had a little sign over their head or something so we could weed them out. But I won't let my random experiences color the fact that not all men are like that. In fact, about 20 minutes later, I accidentally blocked a guy in the aisle, and we both were very apologetic. But man, I have never seen someone melt down like that from something so simple. Stories number 24. Our roommate got caught stealing on camera and wants us to get rid of the cameras. My girlfriend, 27F, I 32M, live in a house with 3 other roommates. We are on the 2nd floor with our bedroom and office room next to each other. Down the hall is the other roommate's room, 28M. We keep a mini fridge with snacks and drinks in the office because it's convenient not to have to walk downstairs. We also don't want people eating our crap. If you have roommates, you know the battle. My girlfriend is super clean and neat. She is meticulous in our decor and placement stuff in our rooms. She started noticing stuff being moved in our rooms and office. We asked everyone in the house, and of course everyone denied it. Now, like everyone else, we have a no going in other people's rooms rule unless given permission, so we haven't had a need for locks. Last month we decided to get cameras and hid one in each room. We found several times the roommate on our floor was going into our room and snooping, laying in our bed, then going to the office and drinking our stuff from the mini fridge. He pretty much made daily visits to the office to relax, take naps, watch videos, etc. We confronted him, and of course he denied it. Then we showed the whole house the video of him, and he got very upset, lol. He was caught and couldn't deny it. He explained it as he gets bored and our office is clean and very relaxing. It should be for the whole house, not just for us. His room is super dirty, so he can't relax in his own room, and we rent that room. He specifically had a problem with the camera in the office because it's pointed at the door. That door, once opened, can see down the hallway. He feels it's an invasion of his privacy for our camera to be pointed down the hallway. Due to it being summer, we've also had to keep doors open because of how hot it is upstairs, even with central AC. We told him we can't close our doors to keep him out. So yes, we have cameras, so if you do come in again, we will know. The house agreed. There's no issue with the cameras, and next time we have an issue, he's gone. I wonder how many people have roommates laying in their beds when they're not home and don't know about it. Lol. Stories number 25A. Dead man's mother still writes him letters. I've been keeping them for 3 years. I need to get this out somewhere because I don't know what else to do with it all. It started about 3 years ago. I bought this little house. It was a fixer-upper, but it was mine. The first thing that showed up in the mail was a birthday card. It had a 20 inside and a note that said, "Happy birthday, son, miss you lots, love, Mom." The handwriting was all shaky. I meant to send it back. I really did. But I got busy and forgot. Then Christmas came and another card. Another 20. Another note about how proud she was of him. I put the money in an old tin on the fridge and stuck the card on the magnet. Now it's been 3 years, and I know his name was Michael. I know he worked construction. I know his mom grows tomatoes in the summer and that her hip hurts when it rains. I know she thinks about him every single day. I found his obituary online 6 months ago. I was looking up something else for the house, and his name popped up. He passed a year before I moved in cancer. She doesn't know. She still writes to her. Boy, and I still read every word. Sometimes I cry right there at the mailbox holding some card she sent just because she saw a bird that reminded her of him. I don't tell anyone. I don't know how to explain that I look forward to mail for a dead man. That I keep this whole shoebox full of love that was never meant for me. I feel like a thief. But I also feel like if I send them back or tell her it'll kill something good in the world. The last little thread she has, so I keep them. I read them. I even talk to her sometimes in my head when I'm alone, telling her about my day like he would have. I know it's wrong probably, but it feels lonelier to think of those letters stopping than it does to keep this secret. Maybe that's the worst part of it all. Stories number 26. Why was that the symptom you focused on? A patient came in with her brother, who she was staying with. The brother was hysterical that she had a headache, but he didn't have any medication and didn't know what to do. I triage her and sees the poor girl is swollen, eyes swollen shut, and she is struggling to breathe. I say, "Sir, what has she taken or eaten recently?" He flips out, distraught. He doesn't know what she ate or that she took anything. I'm trying to calm the brother down. The sister gestures to her bag, and I find some antibiotics. Come to find out, she was having an allergic reaction to sulfa as this was her first time taking it. I asked the brother why he only mentioned the headache. He said, "That's all she ever said." He only went by the words she said, not any gestures or visual cues. Dude didn't even notice she was swollen or when she pointed at her throat. I called the young lady's dad, who arrives by the time the swelling was down, and she was able to talk. The sweet girl says, "No offense, but can I come back home, Dad? Alex is fun, but..." Dad said, "Sure, let's go home, dear." Dad takes the girl home. The brother gets emotional once again. Stories number 27. Borrowing. My Wi-Fi for 5 years? Sure, what's a few more days? Not sure if this is the right place for this post, but let's see. I have few apartments that I rent out, and today, one of the tenants moved out. So I went over for the cursory inspection and key handover and paperwork. This guy has been an exemplary tenant over the years, and today was no exception. The place had been cleared out and cleaned, and checking off the boxes was a formality. When I got there, the only thing left there was the internet modem. This particular apartment had had a family member living in it years ago, and I had arranged the internet for the place. When this tenant moved in, let's call him Moose, because he looks identical to the Moose from Archie comics, just for the sake of simplicity, we agreed to just leave the internet as and add an extra $50 to the rent. No problem. This was back in 2018. Assuming the next tenant can look after whatever they want with respect to internet and cable and phone bundle and whatever, I plan to cancel the service and return the equipment. I unplugged the modem and cables and left it on the kitchen counter while we reviewed the unit and the paperwork. While looking around, his phone buzzed a few times and rang once. He very politely, unlike many people these days, ignored all of that while we were walking and talking. But then, there was a knock at the door. Weird. I'd arranged a viewing of the place while I was here, but how did they get in? Nobody buzzed them in, and there's no way to get to the right floor if you're not buzzed in. Moose opens the door, but it's not the people coming to view the place. It's the next-door neighbor. Let's call her Veronica. She comes in, and there's a bit of, "Oh, you're moving out, where are you going, blah blah," chit-chat, but she's eyeing the modem sitting on the counter. Eventually, she says something like, would it be okay to plug that back in? I was actually using it. Using what? The internet? The Wi-Fi? Yes, indeed. Turns out, back in 2020, at the start of the pandemic, her office shut down and her job turned into full-time work from home. And at some point early in the pandemic, she had some internet issues, and asked Moose if she could hop on his Wi-Fi, which had a clear signal to her place, until her issues were resolved. Sure, no problem, he said at the time. Fast forward more than 5 years, and it turns out she long ago canceled her own service and is full-time running her office, smart TV, and phone off my Moose's Wi-Fi. And now that the plug got pulled, she wants it back. She's offering to give Moose money. But please, plug it in. It's Friday. I need to work, and I need it over the weekend. I'll sort it out on Monday. Moose doesn't know what to say. Neither do I, to be honest. The truth is, Moose never noticed it. It's high speed and clearly enough for everyone's devices, and the monthly contract lands in the middle of the month for some reason. So it's actually paid for the next 2 weeks. In the midst of that, someone buzzes from downstairs. It's the people for the viewing. Archie and Betty, I guess. They come up, and then, oddly, Veronica and Betty know each other. They go the same Pilates studio and often run into each other. Oh, it'd be so much fun if you move in. We could go to class together, yada yada. Veronica offers to take the modem, plug it in at her place, and promises to deal with Shaw Cable, to just take it over since it's all working. I'm not sure it works like that, and you can't just take the equipment next door and have it work. Let me try. Okay, go ahead. She leaves with the modem, having agreed to deal with Shaw and return the hardware if needed, which actually saves me a lot of hassle. So she leaves, and a few minutes later texts that it's working, and thank you so much. I spoke to Shaw and explained the situation, canceled the service effective end of the billing cycle. Veronica has a couple of weeks to set up an account, and they'll either just move the existing equipment over to it, or she can swap for new hardware. Either way, I'm done with it, so I don't know. Entitled person? She made a comment at one point which has to have been tongue-in-cheek because it's so outrageous. Something like, "Oh, come on, please leave it on. Don't be cheap, ha." Yes, I'm possibly the cheap one while you've been getting my free Wi-Fi for half a decade. TLDR. Entitled Neighbors has been using my Wi-Fi for years, gets upset and wants it back when it gets unplugged. Stories number 28. My mother-in-law put in her will that if her greenhouse is removed, we forfeit her home. Hey Reddit. Buckle up because this one has been stressing me and my wife out for months. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here we are. So, I, 35 at May, let's call me Mark, have been married to my wife Emily, 33F, for 6 years. Emily's mom, Margaret, 65F, owns a big old home in a very wealthy neighborhood. It's the kind of neighborhood where every house has been remodeled into a sleek, modern masterpiece. Except Margaret's. Now don't get me wrong, her home has potential. Huge lot, great location, classic bones. But the inside? Think 1970s meets hoarder chic. And the outside? Well, it's got this massive, ugly greenhouse in the backyard. This thing is a Frankenstein creation. Old aluminum panels, glass cracked in places, covered in moss. It's a total eyesore. Every time Emily and I visit, I can't help but picture what the house could look like if someone put the money into remodeling. Knock out some walls, open up the kitchen, update the bathrooms, maybe add a deck. In that neighborhood, it could easily go from dated mess to millions in equity. But here's where it gets bizarre. A few months ago, Margaret decided to update her will. She told Emily and her brother, Daniel, 30M, that when she passes, the house will go to them. Sounds straightforward, right? Nope. She then said, and I quote, "If either of you ever remove the greenhouse, you will forfeit ownership of the property." At first, I thought she was joking. I laughed and said, "So basically the world's ugliest greenhouse is holding the house hostage?" She did not laugh. She was dead serious. Apparently that greenhouse is her pride and joy. She built it with her late husband, Emily's dad, Richard, and it's sentimental to her. I respect that, truly. But writing it into the will that her kids will lose the house if they ever dare touch it? That feels extreme. I asked her, "Wait, can you even do that? Once they own the house, isn't it theirs to do what they want?" Margaret replied, "It's my house now and I decide how it should stay. If you can't respect that, then maybe you don't deserve it." Cue the tension. Emily was stunned silent. Daniel, on the other hand, immediately sided with his mom. He's a bit of a mama's boy and sees the greenhouse as family heritage. Meanwhile, Emily and I see it for what it is, a decaying glass shack that will tank the property's value if left standing. I started doing research online and found mixed answers. Some people said wills can absolutely include conditional bequests. Others said once the property is legally transferred, it's yours to do with as you please. Honestly, the legal side confused me, which is why I'm here. But beyond the law, this whole thing is straining family dynamics. Margaret has made it clear that if we challenge the greenhouse clause, she might just leave everything to Daniel. And Emily? She feels trapped. She doesn't want to fight her mom, but she also doesn't want to inherit a house that's essentially unlivable without remodeling. I keep telling Emily, look, when the time comes, it's just paperwork. No one is going to sue us over the greenhouse unless Daniel makes it an issue. But deep down, I'm worried Margaret will get spiteful and add even more conditions to her will. Like forbidding remodeling, or painting, or God knows what else. At this point, I have two questions. Legally, can she actually enforce this? Can a will dictate how you maintain or remodel a property once it's yours? Even if it's in writing, how realistic is it that anyone would enforce it unless Daniel decides to take it to court? Because honestly, I feel like the only way this even becomes an issue is if Daniel tries to play mom's enforcer after she passes. And that possibility scares me, because family and money can bring out the absolute worst in people. Some extra context about the family dynamics. Margaret, Mill. Extremely stubborn, sentimental, and has always had a flair for control. She micromanages everything from holiday dinners to how Emily folds towels. The will thing is very on brand for her. Emily, my wife, sweet, patient, and non-confrontational. She hates conflict with her mom. I can tell this is eating her alive, but she's too scared to push back. Daniel, BL, lives 20 minutes away, unmarried, works in IT, and is basically Margaret's golden child. He visits weekly and has always been the favorite. He thinks the greenhouse is sacred and that Emily and I are too materialistic. Me, Mark, I'm just trying to be the practical one here. I see the potential of the house, but also the insanity of being bound to a greenhouse like it's a family heirloom. Why this matters so much? This isn't just about an ugly greenhouse. It's about whether Emily and I will ever realistically be able to make the house livable without starting World War III with her family. In a neighborhood where houses are being flipped into multi-million-dollar estates, we'd basically be stuck with the weird old greenhouse house. I love my wife, but I'm not going to spend the next 30 years explaining to neighbors why our backyard looks like a haunted science lab. So Reddit, has anyone ever dealt with something like this? Can Margaret legally bind her kids to a greenhouse from beyond the grave? Or is this just her being controlling and dramatic? And if Daniel tries to enforce it, what are we realistically looking at in terms of legal battles? Update. Greenhouse will drama. Hey Reddit. It's Mark again. A while back, I posted about my mother-in-law, Margaret, putting this bizarre condition in her will. If my wife, Emily, or her brother, Daniel, ever removed the greenhouse in her backyard, they would forfeit ownership of her house. I honestly wasn't expecting my post to get as much attention as it did. A lot of you gave me advice, from lawyer up ASAP to burn it down in an accident after probate. Some of you also pointed out that this wasn't just about a greenhouse. It was about Margaret controlling her kids from beyond the grave. And wow. You were right, so here's what happened since. Step 1. The lawyer. Visit. Emily and I finally scheduled a consultation with a local estate attorney. I wanted actual legal clarity instead of internet speculation. The lawyer, Mr. Harris, early 50s, no nonsense, was blunt. Yes, a will can include conditions. They're called conditional bequests. But once the property legally transfers, it's generally yours to do with as you wish, unless it's placed in a trust with ongoing conditions. In Margaret's case, the greenhouse clause might be written into the will, but the only way it could actually stop Emily and Daniel from altering the house would be if one of them tried to enforce it in court. In other words, Margaret can write whatever she wants in her will, but once the ink is dry and ownership is transferred, the only real risk is Daniel suing us if we try to remodel. Emily asked the million-dollar question. So if my mom passes, and Daniel and I inherit, and I tear down the greenhouse, Would he actually win if he tried to challenge me in court? Mr. Harris leaned back, sighed, and said, he could try, but it would be a messy, expensive fight. Courts don't like micromanaging private property after it's transferred. If the will isn't set up as a trust, most judges would rule that once you own it, it's yours. So basically, the greenhouse clause is more of a threat than a guarantee. Step 2. Talking to Margaret. Armed with this info, Emily decided to have a calm conversation with her mom. I stayed out of it at first. Just moral support from the sidelines. Emily here sat down with Margaret and explained what we learned. That the clause isn't really enforceable the way she thinks it is. She told her gently, Mom, I respect that the greenhouse means something to you. But if Daniel and I inherit this house, we'll need to make it livable. That means updates. That means possibly removing the greenhouse. Margaret's response? Explosive. She accused Emily of planning her death, of being greedy, and worst of all, she said Emily was betraying her father's memory. Emily was crushed. Margaret then doubled down, saying if Emily couldn't respect family legacy, she'd just leave the entire property to Daniel. That night, Emily cried for hours. She's not a confrontational person, and hearing her mom basically disinherit her over a greenhouse broke her. Step 3. Enter Daniel. Of course, Daniel got wind of the conversation. Margaret called him immediately. He stormed over to our house and accused me of putting ideas in Emily's head. According to him, I was using her for her inheritance and trying to bulldoze family history. I told him point blank, Daniel, it's not about me. It's about Emily wanting a future in a home that doesn't look like a science experiment. He wasn't having it. He said if it comes down to it, he'll absolutely take us to court to enforce the greenhouse condition. He even said he'd rather let the place rot than see it remodeled. That was when I realized this wasn't about the house or even the greenhouse. It was about control, favoritism, and old family wounds. Step 4. The breaking point after. A week of not speaking, Margaret invited Emily over to talk. I begged Emily not to go alone, but she insisted. She came back later that night looking shaken. Apparently, Margaret had rewritten parts of her will already. Now it not only included the greenhouse clause but also explicit language forbidding major remodeling without Daniel's written approval. So yes, she's trying to give Daniel veto power over Emily's use of the property. At this point, Emily finally snapped. She told her mom, if you don't trust me to take care of this house, then maybe you shouldn't leave it to me at all. I won't be controlled forever. That was the first time I'd seen Emily stand up to her mom like that. Step 5. Where we are now. So here's where things stand. Margaret is still alive and very much doubling down on her greenhouse legacy. Daniel is ready to go to war if Emily so much as thinks about remodeling. Emily and I are honestly considering walking away from the inheritance altogether. The house is worth a fortune in theory, but with the family drama attached, it might destroy us. We've even talked about buying our own place far away and letting Daniel have the greenhouse house if that's what he wants. Peace of mind might be worth more than property. TL. DR of the update. Talk to a lawyer. Turns out the greenhouse clause isn't as enforceable as MIL thinks, but her golden child son could still try to drag us into court. Mil rewrote her will to give him even more control. Emily finally stood up to her mom, and now we're seriously debating walking away from the inheritance entirely. Final update. The greenhouse saga ends. Months later. Hey Reddit. It's Mark again. This will be my last post about the whole greenhouse inheritance drama. Honestly, I never thought this would drag on for so long or escalate the way it did. But life has a way of writing stranger stories than fiction. Margaret's passing about. 3 months ago, Margaret passed away unexpectedly. It wasn't drawn out, just a sudden medical event. Even though Emily and her mom had a rocky relationship, she was devastated. Whatever the arguments, Margaret was still her mother. The funeral was hard. Daniel gave a long speech about family, legacy, and even made a not-so-subtle reference to the greenhouse being a symbol of their mother's spirit. Emily sat quietly, holding my hand so tight I thought my fingers might break. She was grieving, but she also knew the storm wasn't over, because now the will would come into play. The will reading a couple weeks later, The family gathered in the lawyer's office to read the will. Margaret had done exactly what she threatened. The house was to be inherited jointly by Emily and Daniel. The will explicitly stated that removing the greenhouse or conducting major remodeling without mutual agreement would result in forfeiture of ownership for the offending party. And yes, it spelled out that if one heir forfeited, the other gained full ownership. When those words were read, Daniel smirked like the cat who caught the canary. Emily looked pale, but she stayed composed. The lawyer, not Mr. Harris this time, but the executor, emphasized that enforcing these conditions would be tricky in court. "This language is unusual," he said carefully. Daniel, of course, latched onto the words, "not impossible." Cracks in the sibling relationship. The weeks after the will reading were tense. Daniel started treating the house like it was his alone. He'd go over there daily, water the greenhouse plants, even tell neighbors it was his place. He called Emily constantly, demanding that she promise never to touch the greenhouse or mess with Mom's design. Emily tried reasoning with him. She said she wanted to respect their mom's memory, but also wanted a home that felt livable and safe. Daniel blew up, accusing her of being ungrateful and selfish. That was the breaking point. Emily told him, "If you care about the greenhouse so much, you can have it. I'm not letting this house destroy me like it destroyed Mom." The legal fight, sort of. We went back to Mr. Harris, the estate lawyer. Emily explained that she didn't want to spend years in court fighting her brother. Mr. Harris nodded and said, "Sometimes the smartest move is knowing when to walk away." So Emily signed over her share of the property to Daniel in exchange for a buyout. It wasn't a huge payout compared to the actual market value, but it was enough for us to put a down payment on a new house of our own, one that didn't come with strings attached. Daniel was smug about winning, but honestly, we felt relief. For the first time in months, Emily slept through the night. The ironic twist. Here's the kicker, though. Within 6 weeks of moving into his house, Daniel called us in a panic. A massive storm hit the area and caused serious damage to, you guessed it, the greenhouse. A tree branch crashed through the glass, shattered panels everywhere, and the whole structure became unsafe. The city ended up issuing a notice: either repair it to code at a ridiculous cost, or tear it down. Daniel was furious, blaming bad luck. But Emily and I couldn't help but see the irony. This whole family war over the greenhouse, and in the end, nature took care of it. He's now stuck with a decaying, uninhabitable house in a wealthy neighborhood, and the costs to fix it are enormous. Meanwhile, Emily and I are settling into our modest but happy new home across town. Final reflections. Looking back, this wasn't really about the greenhouse. It was about control, grief, and unresolved family wounds. Margaret tried to control her children from beyond the grave. Daniel clung to her words as gospel. And Emily finally learned the hardest but most freeing lesson. Sometimes peace of mind is worth more than inheritance. We may not have ended up with the $1 million house, but we have something better. Freedom, peace, and a fresh start. TL. Dr. Margaret passed away, and her will included the bizarre greenhouse clause, giving Daniel veto power over remodeling. Instead of fighting, Emily walked away and sold her share to Daniel. A storm later destroyed the greenhouse anyway, leaving him stuck with an expensive mess. Emily and I used the payout to buy our own peaceful home, and we've never been happier. Stories number 29. My bride's guests tried to steal every flower arrangement before the wedding. Even started Aita Reddit. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. I worked as a wedding florist for nearly 15 years before switching careers. And this story is one of the main reasons I realized I didn't want to keep doing it forever. It still makes my blood pressure spike when I think about it. Setting the stage, this happened years ago, back when I was younger and much more naive about the level of entitlement some wedding guests could have. The couple, Sarah, 28F, and David, 30M, were on a budget but really sweet. They wanted a fairy tale wedding, but didn't have the endless cash some brides and grooms do. I made it my mission to stretch every dollar. I decorated the church, drove everything to the reception site, and started transforming the reception hall at the park into something magical. The reception was in a big enclosed building at a beautiful public park, about 30 miles away from the church ceremony. By the time I arrived, I was in turbo florist mode. I didn't have my assistant, she had a family emergency, so I was single-handedly hauling glass vases, arranging giant floral centerpieces, scattering glitter, and placing candles. 15 tables. 15 massive tall glass arrangements with candles and flowers cascading down. Hours of labor. I was exhausted but proud because the room looked incredible. The bathroom break from Hell I made the mistake of taking a 2-minute bathroom break. Literally, 2 minutes. When I came back, the room looked like a bomb went off. Half the tables were bare. Guests, yes, guests, had already arrived early and decided to help themselves. They had picked up the centerpieces and carried them over to their seats like they were party favors. Some had 2 or 3 stacked next to them, proudly claiming them before the wedding had even started. I froze in the doorway. My jaw hit the floor. All I could think was, what the actual hell am I looking at? The confrontation, I walked up and snapped. Months of planning, days of prepping flowers, hours of setup, all ruined in the time it took me to pee. "What in the hell are you doing?" I shouted. One older woman, who I later learned was an aunt, looked up at me all smug and said, "It's our tradition. We take the centerpieces home. That's how we reserve them. After the event." I lost it. My voice cracked, my hands were shaking, and I was furious. I explained that these weren't free-for-alls, that the bride and groom hadn't even seen the setup yet, and that they had completely dismantled hours of my work. They didn't care. They called me dramatic. One man even rolled his eyes and told me to calm down. It's just flowers. Just flowers. The bride walks in. At this point, I was resetting tables as fast as I could while fighting back tears. About 3 tables still needed to be redone when the bride, Sarah, walked in. She saw my face and immediately knew something was wrong. Her relatives tried to spin it like I was being a rude vendor, a bitch who yelled at them. They said I was overreacting. But Sarah looked at me, then at the tables, then at the stacks of centerpieces piled in front of her guests like trophies. And I swear, she just knew. I quietly explained what happened. Her face went cold. She walked over to one table where 3 centerpieces were still piled up in front of some guests. Without raising her voice, she said something I couldn't hear. Whatever it was enough. Those people stood up, grabbed their purses, and left. Early. And empty-handed. Aftermath, Sarah hugged me and told me she understood, that she appreciated how hard I worked, and that she was sorry her own family acted that way. I managed to reset the room before the rest of the guests arrived, but the whole night I couldn't look at those early arrivers without wanting to throw a vase at them. I found out later from another guest that yes, in some families it's common to take home centerpieces as a memento, but it's after the reception, not before it even starts, and definitely not by raiding every single table before the bride sees the setup. I never worked another wedding for that family again. Honestly, I still wonder if those people realized how close they came to ruining Sarah's reception photos entirely. Reflection. That was one of the turning points in my career. I loved flowers. I loved creating beautiful spaces, but the entitlement I dealt with in the wedding industry was insane. No amount of petals, glitter, or candles could make up for dealing with grown adults acting like toddlers at Chuck E. Cheese. I don't miss weddings, but I do miss being surrounded by flowers all the time. TLDR. I was a florist at a wedding, spent hours setting up giant floral centerpieces. Guests arrived early, stole them off tables to reserve for themselves before the bride even saw the room. I snapped, cried, and tried to reset everything. Bride came in, immediately understood, kicked out the worst offenders. Entitled People Suck. Update. The wedding where guests tried to steal all the flowers, hi again. Reddit. I honestly didn't expect so many people to read and comment on my original story about the wedding where the bride's guests tried to take all of the floral centerpieces before the reception even started. It's been a while, and I thought, some of you might like an update because a few wild things happened afterward that I never mentioned. The day after. The morning after the wedding, I got a text from Sarah, the bride. She thanked me again and said she was embarrassed about how her family behaved. She wanted to pay me extra for the stress, but I refused because honestly, She'd been such a sweet client the whole way through. Later that afternoon, though, I got a call from her mother. Let's call her Linda. Linda was furious at me. She claimed I embarrassed their family by yelling at her relatives and ruining the vibe of the wedding. She said I was being unprofessional and that I should have just let people take the flowers because that's tradition. I calmly explained again that they dismantled the reception setup before her daughter even got to see it. She didn't care. She basically told me I'd never get another client from their community again. And you know what? She was right. But that turned out to be a blessing. The guest fallout. Here's the funny part. A couple of weeks later, Sarah and I were texting, and she told me that the fallout from the centerpiece debacle was still ongoing. Apparently, the 3 guests who left early, after Sarah confronted them, were her Aunt Gloria, Uncle Tom, and their daughter Marissa. They were livid that they got kicked out and immediately started gossiping about how Sarah chose a florist over her own family. It caused a whole rift. Half the family thought Sarah was right to defend me and her wedding, and the other half acted like I was the villain. Sarah told me she and David had decided to go low contact with that side of the family because they showed their true colors. In her words, if they're willing to wreck my wedding over some free flowers, what else would they ruin? My professional reputation. At first I was worried Linda was going to tank my business. Word spreads fast, in small towns, and I knew she was gossiping about me. But instead of hurting me, the opposite happened. Other brides started calling me because they heard I was the florist who stood up to rude wedding guests. One even said, if you could handle Sarah's family, you can handle mine. It was weirdly validating. I went from feeling humiliated and questioning my professionalism to realizing that sometimes standing your ground is the most professional thing you can do. The wildest part. Here's the kicker, and I swear I am not making this up. About a year later, Marissa, the cousin who was part of Centerpiece Gate, got engaged. Guess who reached out to me for a quote? Yep, Marissa herself. She had the audacity to email me like nothing ever happened, asking if I'd be available to do her wedding flowers. I sat there staring at the email for a good 5 minutes. I couldn't believe it. I politely declined and referred her to another florist in the area. I didn't mention the past, but she knew why. Later, through the grapevine, I heard she complained that I was holding a grudge. Honestly, I'll wear that badge with honor. Where I am now. It's been years since that wedding, and I've since stepped away from weddings altogether. I moved into corporate event design instead. Fewer drunk uncles, more predictable timelines, and much bigger budgets. But that wedding taught me some huge lessons. Some people truly believe tradition gives them the right to be entitled. Standing up for yourself, even when you cry doing it, is worth it. A good bride or groom will always have your back when you're in the right. And lastly, never leave a reception room unattended, not even for 2 minutes. TLDR of the update. Bride's family tried to ruin the reception by stealing centerpieces. Bride defended me, but her mom and relatives caused drama afterward. Family rift happened. My reputation as a florist actually improved because people respected me for standing up to entitled guests. A year later, one of the very relatives who tried to take the flowers had the nerve to ask me to do her wedding. I declined. Final update. Years later, reflection on the wedding. Disaster. Hey Reddit. It's been a few years since I originally posted about the wedding where the bride's guests tried to steal all the centerpieces before the reception even started. I promised an update, and honestly, this one's long because a lot has happened since then. Sarah and David first, an update on the couple. Sarah, the bride, and David, her husband, are still happily married. They moved to another city a year after the wedding, partly to get away from the drama on her side of the family. Sarah has sent me a few thank you messages over the years, usually around anniversaries or when they do a big event at home. She's always reminded me that defending the reception was one of the best decisions she made. She knew who truly had her back. Interestingly, the family rift actually helped them. They realized who they could trust and who was just looking to stir chaos. Sarah jokes now that my floral rage was one of the healthiest things that happened to her family. The family fallout. Linda, the bride's mom, never fully recovered from being called out about the centerpiece situation. She never reached out to apologize, and honestly, I didn't expect her to. Aunts, uncles, cousins, most of them went low contact, and only a handful actually kept in touch with Sarah and David. The cousin Marissa, who tried to grab the centerpieces, eventually got married herself. She contacted me asking for flowers. Nettie, yep, the same girl. I politely declined and referred her elsewhere. From what I hear, she still complains about me online to this day. Honestly, I laugh about it now. My career, that wedding ended up being a turning point. I realized I had been trying to please everyone, and sometimes that backfires. After that, I started saying no more, to clients who had unrealistic demands, to relatives of brides who wanted to take advantage, and even to venues that didn't respect my work. I eventually moved from wedding-specific work to corporate and high-end event design. More money, fewer entitled guests, and far more predictable hours. I still miss working with flowers constantly, but I've learned to love being respected more than being overworked. The irony is that the very event that stressed me out ended up bringing me more clients. Word got out that I stood up to entitled family members, and other brides started seeking me out because they wanted someone who could handle drama and still make their day perfect. Personal reflection. Looking back, I realize a few things. Boundaries are everything. Letting people walk all over you only sets a precedent. Some traditions are subjective. Spanish wedding traditions are beautiful, but nobody should ruin a bride's or groom's day under the guise of culture. Crying doesn't mean weakness. I cried that day out of frustration, exhaustion, and disbelief, and that was okay. It humanized me in front of the bride, which ultimately helped her understand the gravity of the situation. Good clients are worth fighting for. Sarah and David respected me because I respected their day and their work. That's what matters most. Funny side note, a few years later, Sarah sent me a picture of the flowers from their first anniversary dinner. She'd recreated a small version of the centerpieces I'd made. Seeing that reminded me why I started in the first place. It's not about the drama, it's about the love, care, and beauty you put into your work. TLDR. Final update. Bride's family tried to ruin the reception by taking centerpieces early. Bride defended me, causing a family rift. Cousin later asked me to do her wedding. I declined. I left wedding-specific work for corporate events, gained respect and more clients because I stood up to entitled guests, and Sarah and David are still happily married. Lessons learned. Set boundaries, respect your work, and protect your mental health. Stories number 15. My sister is famous, and nobody knows what she's really like. I constantly see posts about her and how she's the most beautiful woman they've ever seen, etc. It's true, she is very pretty and conventionally attractive. But, in reality, my sister is a really mean and abusive person. I wish I could avoid her altogether, but she is a member of the family and shows up on my feed a lot. Nobody knows how cruel she really is, and it scares me. I wish I had anyone to talk to about it. I hate what LA does to people. She has hundreds of thousands of followers. I wish I could live a peaceful, quiet life without her. I don't even think anyone would believe me about what she's like, unfortunately. She is the type to threaten you or hit you if you get into even the smallest argument. With her, she will dismiss any of your struggles because she has had it worse, always. She is one of the coldest people I've ever known. The person she is on social media is not the mean, vindictive person she is in real life, and that makes me feel anxious the more popular she gets, and the more I have to see her or hear about her. ETA. For more context, I do not follow her or pursue her content. She collaborates with a lot of creators on YouTube and Instagram, and is even in advertisements, so it is hard to avoid her by just blocking. She is sort of an influencer that makes shock value skit stories. Number 30. Guys love the high maintenance look but hate what comes with it. This is based on my previous relationships and my observations, and it annoys me to no end. I'm a pretty chill, laid-back person. I dress up for important events, but otherwise, I dress quite casually. Sneakers, hoodies, etc. My previous partners loved the fact that I was quite down-to-earth and casual, but eventually they'd all voice their discontent in how I dressed, how I should wear heels and pretty shoes more often, and do my hair more, etc., how I should wear clothes from more high-end brands. Now, I would agree with them if I was unhygienic, or dressed in sweatpants to a fancy dinner party. But I dressed normally, and guys don't like that. The thing is, when I was younger, I had a looks-maxing phase where I was always dressed up, had a personal trainer, frequently visited the hair salon, got skincare treatments. I had photos of myself from that time, and my partners would always hint at they would love to see me like that. However, during that time, I was working a second job just to fund my lifestyle. The clothes, the makeup, the training, the skincare, the upkeep costs were insane. I do not regret that phase of my life. It was a good experience, but it required so much energy I do not have now, and I now have other priorities in life. I told my partners how much money I was spending to look the way I did back then, and asked them, are they willing to pay for it now? Because if I spent that much money like I did back then, I would no longer have time to hang out with them because I would need to work extra hours. They all pretty much said no, and that they wouldn't want the relationship to become all about money. Basically, they don't want no gold digger. All those relationships ended for one reason or another, but it annoyed me to no end that all those boys liked me for my chill personality, yet disliked the fact I didn't look like a high-maintenance girl. But they couldn't fathom that the high-maintenance look comes some sort of sacrifice, one way or the other.